The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Saturdays or Sundays, SOR Media, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of SOR Media is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced? Then come own the night with us.
Little brother has taken control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all
Station atop the mountains of British Columbia, live from SOR headquarters. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, and on Spaced Out Radio on iTunes. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio.
Brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We will expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized.
It's Monday, February 26th, Tuesday, February 27th, if you're on the East Coast or across the pond, and this is Spaced Out Radio. Hope you had a great day and night. I am your host, Dave Scott, live from the Great White North in the Caribou region on top of the mountains of central British Columbia Station at SOR headquarters. We are 150,000 strong nightly on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans, and over 160 countries around the world. We are also live on spacedoutradio.com, Spreaker, The Fringe FM. And if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to revolution.radio and donate today. We're all over social media. You can follow us on periscope.tv, Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Dave Scott SOR, Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show. Give our page a like. Our YouTube channel is Spaced Out Radio. And you can listen to us on iHeartRadio in the United States. TalkStream Live. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download and subscribe to our shows on iTunes. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. And, of course, we have a GoFundMe account going on right now. GoFundMe.com/We Own the Night. That's GoFundMe.com/We Own the Night if you want to help us build our brand new studio right here at SOR headquarters as we prepare for terrestrial radio. you head to our website, spacedoutradio.com. You can do a little shopping at our Spaced Out Radio store. Read up on the encounter online dealing with everything paranormal, strange, and odd in our news section. You can check out my latest blog there as well, when we've got some great videos from UFO seekers, Contact TV, and so much more. It's the final Monday of the month, which means it's time to get to go and say hello to Butch Witkowski, the founder and lead investigator from UFO Cop out of Pennsylvania. Butch is a seasoned investigator who has tracked everything from human mutilations to bipedal canines and every ghost and Bigfoot in between. A former police officer, Butch brings his experience and investigative techniques to the field of cryptozoology. He's a straight shooter who is looking for the truth as to what's happening in the forests and the skies above. Butch, always a pleasure to have you back on. Some of the fastest radio we do every single month is when you are on the air with us. How you been, my friend?
I've been fine, and a pleasure to be here.
It's great to have you back as well. How's the investigations going to start the year?
Busy. They've been busy. A lot of UFO stuff, some crypto, some Bigfoot, kind of everything rounding out.
Let me ask you, since the whole Tic Tac video came out from To the Stars, have you noticed an increase in new sightings and adventures that people are having?
No, unbelievably, a lot of them were kind of historical in nature. We got 2 today from 1985. Got one the other day from 2017, a couple from 2016. So it's not, I think everybody expected that to happen, where we'd get a lot of stuff right away, people seeing it every day, but that hasn't happened. It's been pretty much in the historical realm. There have been some in 2018, but we're getting more before the new year than after.
So in your opinion, in the people that you have talked to, are they even aware of the entire UFO phenomenon that's come out in the media, or has this subject in your investigations been status quo?
No, it's been status quo. I really haven't heard anything about the new and upcoming revelations, that have happened over the past few weeks. Everybody kind of stayed the same. When somebody comes out of the blue and just starts saying all kind of stuff like disclosures coming, we have evidence, we have this, we have that, I find that people tend to turn that off. They're not really interested in that because they've heard it before many times at many conferences. And I think it's a human thing where you can tell somebody something, the same thing, only so long, and then they just kind of tune you out.
I can understand that, and I can appreciate that. But do you think that even in the field of ufology, that this has brought a sense of, revigoration to everybody in order to try and find that elusive UFO video? Or do you think it has changed the entire field on the way we look at UFOs and the way we treat UFO sightings? Because I know for me, it seems very... like just seeing a UFO video now, it does nothing for me. It's like those days have passed all of a sudden. How about you?
Yeah, it's kind of the same. I think a lot of the researchers, and I'm talking about the steady researchers, the guys that do it all the time, and I mean the guys that are out in the field doing it, they haven't changed their tactics that I'm aware of. What I am finding is, though, a lot more cohesion with the groups, which was not there too awful long ago. We're going to assist a group that's been working on a case for 3 years, and we're going to supply boots on the ground and equipment. And next week, I believe it is, the week after next. But that stuff was rare in the past, where one group would ask another group for help. And it just seems like in the last in the last couple months, there's been more contact between groups and researchers as far as whether it's cryptozoology, ufology, paranormal, it doesn't matter. The sharing of information, which is a long time coming. information has to be shared. I mean, somebody could be struggling with something for a year, and it's sitting here on my desk with the answer, And that is one thing that we're all happy to see. A couple groups that had not gone by the wayside, and they didn't really fold the tent. They just kind of took a break. Are now coming back online, which is really good, especially the one group, which is a crypto group here in Pennsylvania.
Do you find that this entire field, though, is going to be adjusted, especially in the UFO front, Butch?
I think with the smaller groups it will be. With the larger groups, no. I mean, they're set in their ways. When I say the smaller groups, I'm saying in groups 10 or less investigators, all the way down to the single investigators, the lone gunman type. The bigger groups won't change. The smaller groups, more apt to help each other, more apt to go out and maybe change things or look into different ways of doing things, or asking for help or asking for information, or whether it's on equipment purchases or cases that might have been in their area that mirror a case in their area. That stuff we see now. We see that right now. So there has been a change. What brought on the change, I have no idea, but one researcher said to me when we talked about this a little while back, he said, it just seems like the more stuff they put on TV and the more books that came out that were just absolutely ludicrous, the more people started realizing that maybe they were chasing the wrong dog.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What do you think, though, has changed, though, for the people out there who have these videos that they want to submit, for people who have this potential evidence? Should they even submit it right now, or are we beyond that type of, information gathering?
Well, video is fine if the video, if a video is taken last night and, an investigator is involved right from the very get-go, and they didn't touch it. They haven't enhanced it. They haven't, turned anything. They haven't enlarged it. They haven't done a thing to it. It's raw video. That's good. Once they start to enhance something or pixelize something or change, enlarge it, or they somehow change the video or the photo, when it comes to us, it's worthless. Or if it goes to YouTube, it's totally worthless. I haven't investigated a YouTube video in years, and I mean a lot of years. The cases I was just talking about a little earlier, we got just today, has video, never been touched, just raw video, and I'll work on that tomorrow. And the guy says he has another piece of video, but he's got to retrieve it from the camera. So he said the first one isn't so good, and it isn't really that good, but it can be worked on. And it's of a triangle, and in the one shot, when he's not shaking and moving the camera around, you can see there is a triangle there. So I think once I slow it down, bring it up to par, so to speak, I may be able to discern exactly what's in that photograph, in that video. And then the other video, I don't know what that is yet. He said it's a much better video. It was taken by another gentleman in the same area, but he said it's a much better video, but he has to retrieve it from his camera. I should have that tomorrow or the next day. And, I always say people, if they take a photograph or if they take a video, it's okay to download it from your camera into your computer because that's how you're going to send it. But don't mess with it. Don't start blowing it up and changing it and pixelizing it and, reversing colors and all that kind of stuff. That really just does a lot of damage because they hit save and there's no going back to the original video or photograph. They've already changed it and saved it. Once it's changed and saved, that photograph to me is worthless. I can't do anything with it. I can change the changes, but I'm just changing changes. I'm not getting back to the real photograph.
So in the end, should people still be sending their reports or their, personal experiences into groups right now?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Nobody gets laughed at. Everybody's treated with respect. Empathy is shown when needed. And And that works on the other side, too. If it's a hoax, you're going to be told it's a hoax, and we know it. But, we get such really thought-felt letters, information, emails for help, or to even to look back on something they might have thought they saw when they were a kid, or they were part of something that actually happened when they were a kid, and now they're in their 60s. It takes a little bit for us to go back and find it, but if they have the date and the time and the place, I'm pretty sure if anything happened and it was covered, we'll find it. And they're just happy to see it, that it wasn't, a pipe dream, or it wasn't something they made up out of watching something on TV. They really saw it when they were young, and now they're older. They just want to verify to themselves that they did see it, and it wasn't a movie or something that they watched over the years. I always tell everybody, if you have something, no matter how dumb you think it is, or how dumb it sounds, or what you think it wasn't or was, just send it to somebody. Send it to a local researcher. If you're having a problem finding a researcher in your particular state or area, send me an email. I'll get somebody for you on it. But that's the way you got to do it. You got to turn it in to somebody that's going to try to give you an answer to the best of their ability.
How do they find out the trust, though, Butch? Because I think that's a big one right now. And I'll give you an example. I was watching the new MUFON state director for Washington State on a Facebook Live when she was speaking in front of a group. And I just happened to come across this when she was discussing about all these different websites and everything, and she was literally saying, don't go to this website, don't go to Secure Team 10, don't go to Open Minds, don't go to Third Phase of the Moon. You got to come to MUFON. MUFON does not do this, MUFON does not do that. And I asked her a blunt question while online, and thankfully it was read, about, wasn't MUFON paid off by Robert Bigelow? And it's funny, she didn't know how to respond to that, and she's new. And so, I said to the guy who was taping it, Michael W. Hall, I said, she shouldn't be opening her mouth if she doesn't know.
Correct.
So my question is, how do people find Butch where to go with their information? Because there are so many people out there with these experiences, but we don't know now what's tainted, what's not. Is your group infiltrated? Is MUFON infiltrated? Is, any group out there infiltrated where the information is going to be worked correctly? And for me, I've been honestly telling people, don't report it unless it's to UFO Cop, unless it's to UFO Seekers, unless it's to Forest Moon Paranormal, and a few others that I trust.
And that's the whole thing. It's a trust factor. Now, I don't know if MUFON has the rules anymore. When I was a member, there was a pretty much general rule that you didn't share information with anybody other than MUFON. So if you had a case, let's say you're in British Columbia, you're the only MUFON investigator in British Columbia, correct? And you got a case in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and you know that person can help you. And if you would have sent that information from Vancouver or British Columbia to Philadelphia, you'd be done. Finished. That's the rules. You don't share with any outside groups other than MUFON. So hence, over time, that came back to bite them in the butt big time, because I don't know of any investigator that I know or research group that I know or work with that shares anything with MUFON. Now, I must confess, I have helped some MUFON members in the past, and some recently, with background information that they could not obtain through MUFON. And I'm not saying I have a bigger database of MUFON or anything like that, but I was knowledgeable of the case, I had information, and I shared it with them. And I told them flat out, don't tell them where you got the information, because if you tell them you got it outside an outside source, you could be dumped as an investigator. And that's a sad thing that hangs over their heads, because and I know that the more you share information, the more chances you are of getting an answer to your question. If you would say to me, well, Butch, we got a picture of a Bigfoot up here, in British Columbia, but it looks like it has 3 legs. And I go like, wow, wait a minute, I got one of them from New Jersey. Let me send it to you. Right? But they don't do that. So the sharing of information is important. How you treat the reportee is very important. I have been in the company of researchers, actually investigators, that were, if they would have been talking to me like they were talking to that customer that was giving them information, they'd have lost a bunch of teeth real quick. That I actually walked away, got in my vehicle, and drove off. I mean, demeaning, arrogant, like they had an answer, and the individual giving the information wasn't even halfway through the story. But they had already in their minds figured out that it was nonsense, it was a waste of their time, and they were going to let them know it. And that has been the downfall of a lot of people over time. And, I mean, there were a lot of names, if you would have went online 6 years ago, 7 years ago, 8 years ago, 9 years ago, you would have seen a lot of names up there that aren't around anymore. They're just not around anymore. There are very few researchers and investigators that will go out of their way for somebody. They'll do what they have to do. They'll fill out that necessary paperwork. They'll ask the necessary questions. That's the end of it right there. Then it gets filed. I've investigated cases that I closed out years ago. I still have contact with these people. How's it going? Just a phone call. How's it going? Anything new happening in the area? You heard anything? I mean, they're thrilled to death to get a call back. I'm not expecting them to give me another claim of a UFO or whatever in the woods, but just the fact to let them know that we didn't forget them, and that case is still either open or closed, and that we still think that the information they gave us was valid, and therefore we will stay in contact. People don't think like that. It's like, Fortune 500 companies really spend zillions of dollars on customer service. And without customer service, they're not worth crap. So although we're not selling anything, we still have to, produce that customer service, that one-on-one with what they're dealing with. We've got to put ourselves, when we're listening to that story or reading that report, in their place. How would they feel? How would I feel? Could they have seen that? Could I have seen it? Is there a background of these reports in that area? Yeah, you got to look. You got to find out. So that filling out of a paper and filing it and then having that person call you back a month later and saying, well, did you find anything? And they're going like, well, no, we didn't have time for that, but we'll look into it sooner or later. I'd rather have them call back and me saying, yes, I have more information, or I'll call them before they get a hold of me and say, I'm going to send you what I found. Now, it may or may not be something close to, or maybe it is the same as what you saw, and I'll send you the photograph, and here it is, and I email it. But a lot of investigators do not do that. They just don't. It's stamp it, file it, forget about it.
When somebody has that sighting, though, okay, and I realize that they have to beware of their surroundings, how do they know, Butch, whether or not they are getting someone who is independent? What are you telling people these days to try and get them comfortable? Because in the end, for the most part, the people don't really know. They'll go to whoever comes up on Google first. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, but now, a lot of, and this may sound strange, especially I'm saying this to you, right? There are a lot of researchers and investigators that will not do a radio show. They just will not do it. Why? I haven't got a clue, whether it's they have a fear of somebody asking them a tough question they can't answer, or, not having their act together as far as their information and background of investigation goes. But there are a lot that will not do radio shows. And if they do, it's one of those, half-hour spot deals, on, off, couple commercials, so you're actually on 15 minutes maybe. That's it. I also, that same individual is more likely to speak at a conference that nobody's ever heard of. I mean, it's in the middle of, I like using your area because it's so remote. This would be like having a conference in the lake in Vancouver. It's just the middle of nowhere, and there's not a whole lot of press on it. There's there's no tickets. It's a free deal, and they're speaking to like 6 or 8 people. Well, in front of 6 or 8 people, you can make Mickey Mouse look like Godzilla. But when you're speaking to 300 or 400 people, and that audience is filled with researchers, longtime researchers, new researchers, people that have been that are abductees or have seen UFOs or have seen cryptids, you better have your act together, because that's where your credibility comes in. And if you lose that credibility, you're done. And that's happened to a lot of researchers over time. And some were very well known, but not today. They're just not, the credibility ain't there anymore. If you say you're going to call somebody tomorrow, if I get a call tonight from the show, from one of your people on the show, and they say they want to talk to me about a UFO sighting they had tomorrow, I will pick out the time that I have tomorrow and say, okay, I'm going to call you at such and such a time. Or you can call me at such and such a time, or you want to do it by email, here's my email address. I'll give them all the information they need. But researchers, for some reason, and it's always been strange to me why, they just don't take that one step forward. They rather just stay in place, listen to the story, listen to the evidence. They've already made up in their mind what they're going to do. They'll go through the motions of taking a report. Very few of them ever go to the site, ever. It's either done by phone or by email. That's it. I get a sighting, like I did back in this December a year ago, in a raging snowstorm in my bedroom slippers, no socks and a light jacket, jumped in my truck at 12 o'clock and got home at 4 after standing in the snow that I couldn't feel my legs anymore, just to see what I wanted to see, that man was seeing at the same time I saw it. It was worth it. If I would have had to stay there till 6 in the morning, I probably would have demanded breakfast at that point. But that's what's got to be done. You can't just talk to somebody, listen to the story, and then walk away with your hands in your pockets. If you're a researcher or investigator, do the research, do the investigation. And that's what it comes down to. And that's why I think there's a lot of folks that, they have a hard time. Well, they did. Not so much anymore, but they did at one time. They had a real problem finding groups. I get emails pretty much every week. And this is no kidding, Dave, of people that want to join a paranormal group. But there's so many here in Pennsylvania, they don't know which one's a good one. Now, I've dealt with 3 or 4 of them. I know they're good. I know they do what they're supposed to do. And the one guy in particular, I had to laugh. He sent me an email. He said he does paranormal work on his own. He's been doing it for about 20 years, but he wants to get involved with a group, something not too far away from where he lives. And he gives me his address, and I said, look, let me look around, and I'll see if I can find anybody that I know that, has meetings, or you can go talk to him, or I'll give you a phone number or whatever. I get online and go into my database, and the paranormal group that is really hot in his area, but this would be northeastern Pennsylvania. Been around for a long time, like 25 years. It's the same 8-member team. They do a lot of stuff in Pennsylvania. They do a lot of stuff in New York. They do a lot of stuff in New Jersey, in that that northeastern section. Their location was 18 blocks from his front door, but they don't advertise. He called them. They had an appointment to talk with him. He's now a member of their team.
Interesting.
Put forth a little effort, and you're going to get an answer one way or the other. It was amazing. He didn't even know of them. He said, I never heard of them. I said, well, they've been around for 25 years. I said, you ought to hear of them. He said, swear to God. He said, I've never heard of them. I said, well, according to the map, they're like 18 city blocks from your front door. I gave him the address, phone number. He evidently called them the next day. They called him back. He met with them. He went out with them on a case. And he sent me a real nice thank you letter that, you know, he was accepted in the group as a trainee investigator. Now, here's a guy that was by himself, has all the equipment he needed, everything. He had good stuff, no junk, and was going out by himself. Well, independents that go out by themselves are only satisfying themselves. They're not going to get an answer. You know, if they get an answer, it's just for them. So they're not really helping the community along, the research community. That's why I've always stressed that, you know, we'll share anything with anybody. It's like, if it's not an open case, I'm not going to do that. But, I mean, I'll share information on a case, but I won't go right to the heart of it where we're still investigating it. And it's really neat sometimes that you feel like, you know, you help somebody out that was having a problem that had nothing to do with a sighting. This was a guy that had a problem finding a group to join. And that's happened a couple times over the past 2 or 3 years. Just makes you feel good.
Anthony in the Twitterverse here says, you're right on, Butch. Thank you for making that comment. And people should have, or researchers should have, some respect for the people making these reports. And thanks for bringing that to the public.
He's quite welcome.
I have an interesting topic that I want to bring up with you tonight, Butch. Last week we had Jody Cook on from Ohio, and we were talking Dogman. Now, I realize you deal with a bipedal canine that you believe is a little bit different than, you know, the actual Dogman, a Beast of Bray Road, or whatever it may be.
Right.
But he made an interesting comment about how he's starting to wonder whether or not this creature actually is from Earth, because the more and more that he discusses Dogman on a professional level with other researchers and ex-military people, he being ex-military himself, he's starting to learn that there's these groups that are now hunting Dogman that are very, very private that nobody knows about. Have you heard of any of these groups?
I've heard stories of these groups. I never researched into the groups. I can share a quick story where a Bigfoot group in Pennsylvania, actually central Pennsylvania, was out in their research area that they've been researching many years. And they had a team that met them there to go along. They were from New York. And they were in a very well-known, centrally located research area that there have been a lot of reports over the years. They go back a long time. And the group just proceeded to go down this road going into the research area, and it's not really a road, it's more of a trail. And out of the bush, and this is in the middle of the night, this is like 1, 2 in the morning, steps a guy who's as surprised to see them as they are to see him. Now, this guy is dressed in full camo, and I mean the new digital stuff. This isn't all something somebody put together from their local Army surplus store. Helmet, camera mounted on the helmet, radio connection, MP4 rifle. This guy's loaded for bear. I mean, he is an absolute soldier in combat gear. Mm-hmm. He looks at them, and they don't know what to say. And he says, evening. And they said, good evening. And then he says, just out hunting some bear. Night vision goggles, the whole bit, right? And they kind of look at each other, and when they turn around, he walks into the bush, and that's it. They don't see him anymore. In that particular area, there is no Army Reserve centers. There are no military bases. Actually, there's no access roads to even get into there. It's all trails. So what this soldier dressed in combat gear was doing at that time of the morning in that particular area, hunting bear, which is totally illegal, especially with the weapon he had and the way he was dressed, and at night, made no sense whatsoever. And the group had passed that off. And then I did a conference out in western Pennsylvania, which they came to They were also speaking at the conference, and we were outside the truck just, having a soda and shooting the breeze. And he said, "I got to tell you this," and he starts to tell me this story. And I'm going like, "Now that's interesting, because there are stories, and there's a lot of them in England, where there's involvement in cattle mutilations or animal mutilations specifically, and human mutilations, and Bigfoot cases and stuff like that, where the military is involved. Mount St. Helens, where the old story goes, where a couple Bigfoot were injured in the fire from the St. Helens explosion, and they were taken out in military transports, and military arrived on the scene and were treating them. The case in England, Richard D. Hall, and I think the other guy's name is Crayton, Crayton. Another researcher over there, were investigating human mutilations, and they described through a military man, retired, how the unit he was attached to, a NATO unit, would get called to the scene of human mutilations. And he described the mutilations. It was a family of 4, husband, wife, son, daughter. Son was completely skinned, a lot of parts missing from the other bodies, holes, the whole 9 yards, just like cattle mutilation. And they were just told to stand guard and let no one near. And he said within a matter of a very short period of time, some helicopters arrived and troops got out and took over the scene, and they were told to leave, and they were the cleanup crew, and they were from NATO. He said in every instance, they were U.S. military. So there were no Indian from India. There was no Belgians, no Swiss, no French, no English. These were American troops. And he reiterated 3 or 4 stories. The whole thing is on YouTube. It's a really great piece to watch. And just if they just go into put in, your folks can Google Richard D. Hall, Hall, human mutilations, and it'll come up. It's about an hour and 25 minutes or something like that. It's fascinating. It's just fascinating. Mm-hmm. But it's, those stories are out there. And this guy popping out in the middle of the woods, bear hunting in the middle of the night with an MP4 rifle, laser scope, the whole 9 yards.
Is an MP4 powerful enough to bring down a bear?
Oh, well, yeah, it has it'll carry a 30-round clip. 30-round clip of hollow point ammunition will bring down pretty much anything.
Well, the reason why I asked is, and I was hoping you were going to tell that story, Butch, because hearing that story, and you've told that a couple of times on the show here, and then hearing Jody's story about the potential of having Dogman, being from somewhere else, and this is a guy who's a real science guy, likes the scientific way of everything, it just doesn't make sense. You know what I'm saying? In regards to this creature. Do you think that there is any point of even researching whether or not it is from here? Because so many people will look at that and say, well, there goes the woo-woo crowd again.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've always passed I passed on the woo-woo crowd and all the laughter many years ago, because the people that do that, I don't see them in the woods. I don't see them in the houses. I don't see them looking up at the sky. They just sit back and do their woo-wooing and their chuckle and laugh under their nose. But I know that a lot of researchers over the last 5 years have kind of changed their mind, and it's not only with bipedals or dogmen or Bigfoot, even UFOs, and even some paranormal events, where things just can't happen the way they happen without some type of intervention. And when I say that, either intervention of something placing something there, or something removing something from there. And I always tell people, keep an open mind. You never know. I mean, you just never know. It's I keep seeing a photograph in my head that I saw many years ago where you see these Bigfoot tracks start at a barn, and this is wasn't even in Pennsylvania. I think it was upstate New York. Matter of fact, I know it was upstate New York. And these footprints started a barn, and the stride is unbelievable in length. There's no way a human could make that stride. And the size of the feet were just, of course, the 8-inch wide, 16, 17, 18 inches in length, and good prints. And they leave the barn, and you can see the guys walking along the prints doing the video, and it goes into a field. And what the field is actually a cornfield that's down for the winter. There's no footprints in that field except these. And right in 20 feet inside the field, they just disappear. They're just not there. They're gone. Now that's crazy. That's nuts, And I went back to save that video. It's gone. It's removed from YouTube. And nobody went out and did that because they would have had to backtrack, or, if they had it on prints on a stick or however they do it, there would have been other prints. There were no prints. That snow was pristine, smooth, and it was only about 6 inches deep. But there the prints were, starting at the barn, on a dirt spot, a spot that had no snow, and then it went right into the snow, across the barnyard, into the field, and gone. They're just not there. So where did they go? Where did it go?
Well,
how many hunters?
Go
How many hunters have said they've been out and they see something, and they describe a Bigfoot, and they'll say it looked like it just vanished in front of me. It went over a fence or it went behind a tree, and there's nothing else behind the tree, and it's just gone. It's just gone. Mm-hmm. And then there's so many things that it could be, and there's a lot of things it can't be. But you can't rule out any of it because you don't have an answer. I mean, I wouldn't have an answer for seeing a bipedal in front of me 50 feet, and I got him on video, and I've got him on thermal imaging, and I've got him on infrared, and then I look up and he's gone. Mm-hmm. He was there. I got him. I got the proof he was there, but now he's not there. And a matter of me just looking down and maybe adjusting a camera or whatever, and he's gone. So how does that happen? Mm-hmm. How did that, our last report where the guys were, I think I mentioned on the last show, where the two gentlemen were checking out a new walking path that was being built in a state park. One was a park ranger, and they had something was following them on the right-hand side. Then they finally got to the end of the construction area. They turned around, that was following him on the right-hand side again. He stopped to look. This thing is standing out in the middle of the trail, looking straight at him. He gives the description. It's exactly like everything else we've gotten. He turns around, his buddy says, I think we better step it up. So they step it up, get back to the parking lot. They never heard anything walking behind them again. But when they get to the parking lot, it's up on a small hill above the parking lot staring at them. How did it get there?
That's the problem. We don't know.
Exactly.
We don't know. And we can sit here and surmise all we want, but, we don't know.
That's why, when I say to people, please keep an open mind. Don't shut anything off. The dumber it sounds, the crazier it sounds, may be your answer. I mean, look how many things have been found in history by dumb luck. Somebody's off-the-wall theory that, I just think that it can't be there. It has to be buried over there. Well, that's way out of line. Nobody was ever there, and they go dig it up, and there it is. When I'm out, and even with these guys that I'm going out with on the 10th, I know about the case. They sent me the case. Mapping is done. I've seen that all. I know where we're going to be. I know how we're going to set up the cameras and the thermal imaging and all that stuff. And it is a group of fellows that they have never seen Bigfoot, but they've been doing it long enough that they know something is out there. And when you get a report of a big hairy creature that turns a dumpster upside down, a loaded dumpster, That ain't the neighbor's cat. Dumpsters weigh a lot. And this thing picks it up and turns it upside down. They needed a forklift to put it right side up. So what was that? What dug in a trash can and pulled out a trash bag and ran into the wooded area behind the farm? And the next day they went out looking, and they found the trash bag all ripped open, and all the bits of food that were in there were eaten. Packages that were thrown in are unwrapped. So something is smart enough to know where the food is, take it into the woods, open the bag, and unwrap food that's been thrown in there, and eat it. I wouldn't say that's some dumb creature. So how many people encounter something that they're looking right at and they can't believe what they're seeing? That happens many, many, many times. Somebody taking a walk in the woods and they come across what they describe as a Bigfoot or a bipedal or a Dogman or whatever. And they just have no idea what they're looking at, yet they're staring right at it. And they're of sound mind, they're not drunk. And there's usually more than one or two people that do it at the same time. And like this, the bipedal has been seen by individuals, it's been seen by 2 people, it's been seen by 6 people at the same time. And the Dogman reports that I see are basically the same thing. You go down south into Louisiana and you're dealing with the Rougarou. And the Rougarou is almost identical to the bipedal here. So I can only say from our investigations that we have nothing outside of our lichen loop. Our investigation, our research area, we have no reports outside of that. There are historical reports outside, but not from us. The reports we have are all inside that loop. Same thing when you get down to Louisiana. In the Baton Rouge and along the bayou, there's a research area that there are quite a number of Rougarou reports, but not outside of it. So do they get to an area where they are, they don't feel threatened, or they're comfortable, or everything they need is in that particular area? We don't know.
Do you think, though, that even though that idea that Dogman may be some sort of formidable alien-type creature, or should be investigated as such, how do you get the public, when they ask you, well, what is it? How do you get the public on board with something like that?
Well, I don't think you'll ever get the public on board with anything unless you have proof and evidence. I mean, you can go in front of a crowd and, you can really pump them up and get them half crazy. But somebody in that crowd is going to say, okay, so you told us all that. Now, where's the proof and where's the evidence of what you just said? And you're going to stand there with your thumb up your butt looking like a moron. So the thing is to get the evidence, to get that proof, whether it's a video, and only on video. When I say video, I'm not talking about, going out there with one of our Sony or Canon cameras. I'm talking about going out there with one of our FLIR devices and taking video. Because, again, nothing hides from the FLIR. I don't care what it is. If it's there, it's on FLIR. It's there. The heat signature's there. Cold, hot, makes no difference. It's there. So I can put up that image on a screen and say, okay, this is what the FLIR caught. We didn't see it visually with our eyesight. We saw nothing on this trail. But there stands, and there's a measurement of the tree, there stands a 10-foot tall bipedal. So where it came from and all that stuff is now the next stage of the investigation, where their footprints left. And there's another thing. Sometimes these dogmen and these, not sometimes, a majority of the time, probably most of the time, these dogmen out in western Pennsylvania, in through Ohio, and down into West Virginia, Northern Virginia, they're seen. Sometimes they're photographed, but they leave no prints. Why is that? Bigfoot leaves prints. I don't have any prints. I have impressions, but that's not a print. But I don't have any prints where these things stood or where they were. And they were on some pretty decent ground that they would have left a print. But in one particular case where we had a bipedal canine sighting where the individual watched it for like 10 or 15 minutes and it didn't move, there were no prints there. But 20 foot away, going up a trail, we found black bear prints that were perfect. I could have cast those and sold them here's a perfect black bear footprint, but why didn't the bipedal canine leave a footprint to or from the pond? So there's so many little things that irk me, you know what I mean? Because I don't have an answer, and I'm trying to think of everything I can, and my wee little brain just gets to the point where it just goes like, keep looking.
We only got about 5.5 minutes here before we got to go to our first break of the night here. And I want to continue with Dogman. So with people who are having these Dogman sightings then, a lot of people are saying that this animal is vicious. People have shot at it, and it pretty much laughs at them, Butch. What are we actually dealing with in your mind?
Well, the only story I can come up with in Pennsylvania is where and this is in the late 1800s. This was out in western Pennsylvania where some sheep were being killed and small cattle were being killed, ripped apart basically, so they thought they had a wolf problem. So, of course, everybody went out looking for the wolf. They didn't find it. And the one farmer, an elderly gentleman who befriended the younger generation, so to speak, with stories and stuff like that, kind of went missing all of a sudden. And this was right after a couple sheep had been killed and mauled. And, of course, they started looking for him, too, because they thought, well, maybe he saw what happened with the sheep. He tried to intervene. The wolf got him and carried him off. So they're looking for not only what killed the sheep, what may have killed the old farmer. And they saw a lot of rustlings in bushes and some shadow run away, and everybody opened up on the shadow. Got dark. They couldn't go out anymore. It was too dark. Next day they went out, and they found the farmer. He was full of holes. They shot the farmer, and he was covered in sheep's blood. He was the one that killed the sheep.
That's kind of gross.
They say in books that I've read on werewolves and lycanthropy and stuff like that, they say that you could have one as your neighbor. You'd never know it. You just would never know it. Some were soldiers in the Roman army that were very famous generals that turned. There is a group of indigenous that for 1 year out of their life, every one of them turns into something off and on for a couple months and then go back to where they were, and then they stay where they were. They don't go back anymore. Then you have skinwalkers, which of course goes back just as far as Bigfoot with the indigenous. And skinwalkers are not talked about. Talking about a skinwalker, if you're an indigenous talking about a skinwalker, you're going to get a visit, and you're not going to like it. And even though the younger generations are more apt to tell the story of, what they heard around the campfires and stuff growing up, they are not going to tell you anything new that you wouldn't already have known. So the whole mystery of Dogman, Rougarou, bipedal canines, wolfmen, the mystique, the mystery of it all is just amazing. And the number of reports, not just the ones we got, but I'm talking about the historical reports that we found in the state of Pennsylvania alone. I mean, I don't know what I'd come up with if I'd start doing every state. I'd probably come up with 1,000 of them. They're always seen alone. They're never seen in pairs. They don't run. They stand their ground, which is a little different with dogmen. Dogmen, if people get too close to them, they'll take off. They may be seen, but then they're running. They're gone. And the size and all that's a little different. But there's one guy that just swears and declares they're feral dogs. Well, they could be, but not all these reports. I mean, if there were that many reports of feral dogs, I'm opening up a kennel up there, and boy, I'm just going to make a fortune selling dogs. But they have no fear. These bipedals have no fear whatsoever. They will the one guy, I mean, he's standing 20 feet away from this thing. He's got a 12-gauge shotgun in his hand. And he's looking right at it, 20 feet away. And it's not moving. It's not afraid of him or that gun. And he just had it in his head, I'm just going to back on out of here and get in my truck and leave. And he said the whole time he backed out, and the whole time, even when he was in his truck leaving, he never took his eyes off him. So was it ready for a fight? Probably. And we've had, in historical reports, injuries. There have been injuries and killings, flat-out killings, in down Louisiana, in the Bayou area of the Rougarou. I'm not too familiar with a lot of the stuff west of the state of Pennsylvania. I know there's a lot of reports out in Ohio. I don't know all about those. My primary concern is right here in Pennsylvania. I know there's a bunch of them in West Virginia, Northern Virginia, and going down in Kentucky. So they may be all over the country in one form or another. What they are and where they came from, nobody knows. Nobody. Could they be brought here by an entity? Yeah, I guess. I mean, look at the stories of reptiles living under the earth, or in the earth for, I mean, those stories have been told for hundreds and hundreds of years. So I guess it's all what the investigator's willing to do and how far he's willing to go to do it.
Right, right. Butch, I'm going to get you to hold on right there, okay, because we do have to step out for our first break of the night. Thank you so much. Butch Witkowski is here for Strange Days. Butch comes in the final Monday of every month to chat everything cryptid with us, so we're going to continue on. In the next hour, I know we've been getting a lot of questions about this recently, about missing people. We're going to talk to Butch about that right after this on Spaced Out Radio.
Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new, with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Lorian Fenton here, SOR listeners. Join me at UFOCon 2018 in South San Francisco, California, March 23rd through 25th, where 14 presenters discuss all things disclosure, UFOs, and aliens. Stephen Bassett, Grant Cameron, and Melinda Leslie address disclosure. Preston Dennett will present Inside UFOs. Your Dave Scott and Lynn Buchanan tell of amazing alien contact. Get tickets at caufocon.com.
The freedom to post what you want, when you want. That's the social media freedom you need. Social Media Freedom is the free app in your app store. No need to worry about going to jail or being shadow banned any longer. It's the freedom to say what you feel. The freedom to know Big Brother isn't watching. It's the way social media is supposed to be. Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free. Download from your app store today.
Coming September 28th to the 30th, it's our first annual Caribou Paracon, put on by Spaced Out Radio and the Canadian Society of Questers. 3 days of paranormal, supernatural, and spiritual knowledge in the beautiful 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Tickets are $150 Canadian for the event, being held at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Come watch our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Lorian Fenton, David Weatherly, Ross Allison, and more. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
Hey Space Travelers, it's Joe Roop, your host of Spaced Out Saturdays. Come join me as we explore the realms of the paranormal, the esoteric, and everything in between every Saturday night at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. You know the truth is out there. Don't get caught sleepwalking. Come join Spaced Out Saturdays. That's every Saturday night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, right here on SpacedOutRadio.com.
Psychic Sundays, spiritual communication, ET contact, Sasquatch in your backyard. We will have it all on Cosmic Passport with me, Elizabeth Anglin. Each Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, At spacedoutradio.com, I will take you on a journey of enlightenment. The goal is learning from the soul on out. We'd love it if you joined our experience, Cosmic Passport, heard Sundays at spacedoutradio.com.
365 days a year, we're in the field, investigating UFO sightings, talking to alien abductees, and visiting secret military locations like Area 51. We're UFO Seekers, official partner of Spaced Out Radio. Follow our daily search for the truth at ufoseekers.com or like us on social media. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
From coast to coast to coast, Blacklight Uncharted is taking on the paranormal across Canada. From ghostly hauntings to the UFOs flying above in conjunction with MUFON Canada, we're closely investigating what's going on in the northern skies and checking out the apparitions that walk among us. Check out our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com. We want to know your thoughts, we want to hear your experiences, and we want you to share your stories. The answers are out there, and we intend to find them.
It's paranormal news at its finest. Welcome to The Encounter. At spacedoutradio.com, The Encounter online is SOR's trusted news source for everything weird and strange going on around the world. This is news editor Eric Markham. Our team of journalists are scouring the planet for those strange stories that rarely make the mainstream. No fear-mongering or fake news here. Head over to spacedoutradio.com and encounter The Encounter.
Want to learn more about aliens, cover-ups, conspiracies, cryptids, and the paranormal? All you have to do is tune in S4 as we take over Spaced Out Radio Night, starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, each and every Saturday night, right after Spaced Out Saturdays. Hi there, this is Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. Join me, Corey Ruiz, and friends as we discuss the hot topics of the night. It's fun, entertaining, and as dark as the night. Find us at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Do you want to know what's really going on in your world? Do you have questions about who you can trust in the mainstream media? Then look no further than the Rebel Planet. Come get the straight answers right here at spacedoutradio.com. Join me, Jamie Sexton, creator of Rebel Planet News, as I fill you in on the stories behind the stories. All you truth seekers, be sure to tune in to Rebel Planet on spacedoutradio.com the third Thursday of every month.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag SpacedOutRadio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to the second hour of Spaced Out Radio. Tonight, I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the program, Geraldine Orozco is going to join us. We're going to talk about consciousness. We're going to talk about alien contact, and so much more. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans, and over 160 countries around the world. We're also live on The Fringe FM. And if you're listening in on Revolution Radio Radio. Remember, the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com or revolution.radio and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Schnittlock. Schnittlock is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets the password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. I almost screwed up that first part. Schnittlock. Close. Very close. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, you can follow us live on periscope.tv. You can also follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio if you want to connect live with me during the show as well. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, you can follow me at Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio. So you go to Spaced Out Radio, go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. That's where we store our archives. We are on iHeartRadio in the United States. TalkStream Live. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download and subscribe to our shows on iTunes. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for $5 a month. Rock out to some Bumblefoot. Shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. Read up on the encounter online. Or watch great videos from UFO seekers, contact TV, and so much more at spacedoutradio.com. For the second time tonight, we introduce our guest. He comes in the final Monday of every month to talk everything cryptid, from UFO cop Butch Witkowski and Strange Days. Butch, welcome back.
Good to be back on.
So, I got this UFO con coming up later. Well, let's see. We're about 25 days away before I leave here to head on south to San Francisco to check this out. And I got to tell you, I'm only about a third done, Butch. I've never done a presentation regarding my experiences via, what do they call that? Via, you put the videos and stuff on the screen. Pictures
PowerPoint.
PowerPoint. That's the word I'm looking for. Thank you. And I got to do one of those. I got to tell you, I'm a little nervous about it, bud. A little nervous. I don't like PowerPoints. They do nothing for me. But it's mandatory. Don't know what I'm going to do.
Well, a lot of conferences, some conferences don't care if you use a PowerPoint or not. First big conference I did, they demanded a PowerPoint, and I had never done one on my own. And I struggled through that in about 3 or 4 days and finally got it to where I went, this is good enough. I'm not doing it anymore. I ain't touching it. I've polished up over the last 9 years, though. But anyway, I walked up on that stage with 3 pieces of paper in my hand, and I pretty much winged it. And it went over very well. So I guess it's what you have to say and how you say it. It's not so much all the nonsense you bring with PowerPoints and pictures that people probably saw or stories that people probably heard 100 times from other people. I mean, if you just get up there and be yourself and do what you do best, it works.
Well, you know what? The hard part about it is, I add to the fact that I am no type of artist whatsoever. So to be able to have to draw some of these sightings that I saw, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be very, very difficult. I got to tell you, I'm a little nervous over it, my friend. I'm a little nervous.
You'll get over that once you get up behind the mic.
Oh, yeah.
My first one was pretty easy because a lot of it was cattle mutilation, human mutilation, missing persons. So all that stuff was available picture-wise on the internet. And mine went pretty easy after 4 days. And I've revamped it probably 50 or 60 times since I made the original. And every now and then I'll pop the original up like, God, did I really do that? That really sucks. But you'll get better at it.
Mm-hmm. Well, the ad-libbing doesn't really bother me because I'm pretty familiar with my stories, But it's just making sure the technology works.
I've really never seen technology cause an issue. excuse me, at any conference I've been to, the smaller ones or the bigger ones. What I do to protect myself, if there's a technology issue, I always have a laptop with me, and I always have a thumb drive with everything on the thumb drive. So if something screws up on their end, all I got to do is plug in and use my own equipment. So might be a thought for you. Just put it on a thumb drive, take your own laptop, and anything goes sour, just whip out your laptop, plug in your thumb drive, and do your thing.
Well, that's what we're planning on doing. Is I will be bringing both my laptops down, just so I can make sure that I have everything A-OK organized, making sure that everything is all right, and that will be very, very good. But you know what? I'm looking forward to it, and there are a lot of big-name people heading to that conference in San Francisco, March 23rd to 25th. I highly suggest for all of our listeners out there, even if you're not in the chat rooms, to head on down to it in San Francisco at the Holiday Inn Airport Hotel, UFOCon 2018. It's going to be a lot of fun. And you know what? I got to thank Lori and Fenton, too, because you know what the best part about this is, Butch? She didn't put me on the morning shift.
There you go.
I got Sunday afternoon, my friend. I'm the third last speaker. Sunday afternoon. That's a good. That's a good shift.
I think the very first one I did, I was the third speaker, and then from then on out, I was either first, second, third. And when I did the big conference out in Kansas, I was, the speaker started on Wednesday, so Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I was Saturday morning at 8 o'clock. And I thought, nobody's going to be there at 8 o'clock. The theater was full. Here I thought I was going to skate, and I got burned.
Well, you know what? Do you enjoy doing the conferences still?
It depends on the conference. If it's something new, it's a new conference and it's different names. I mean, people that I don't know. I try to shy away from the conferences where I know everybody. I mean, I've heard them, I've seen them, I've been to conference with them, I've spoken on stage with them, off stage. It's the same old stories. I like to go to the conference where I can present something different that I have never presented before, and I'm listening to stuff that's being presented that I've never heard before, and those are the ones that I'll go to. But I've been to conferences where we just took our mobile unit and along with other people that had different types of mobile units for paranormal and stuff like that, and we were just lined up outside and had everything open for people to inspect and stuff like that, and we had more people outside than we had inside. So that's pretty cool too.
Oh, yeah, I'm looking forward to it, I love this circuit because, I mean, it's so great to make contacts and really figure out if the people you're dealing with are actually good people, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And look, the majority of them are, you'll find a butthole in every group, but on a whole, I ran into over all the years I've been doing it since 2007, I have only ever run into that once, where there was just somebody that was thought in my mind was this guy should be in a mental institution, and but it's really fun to speak to people that have been at it a long time, or they had an experience that is worldwide known, like Robert Salas, the commander of the nuclear base where that was covered, that the UFOs flew over and shut them down. Those kind of folks, Stanton Friedman, just different people that, you don't normally hear. Frank Frascino out of Florida with his cases. I mean, it's amazing. And, it works out. Plus, then you meet the people that are there just, they're from different groups, they're from different organizations, and they want to talk to you, and you get to talk to them, so they learn about you, you learn about them. It's really a fun thing. And, But the bigger conferences, there are very few of them anymore because of the cost. There's, I think, less than 10 now. There used to be like 30. There was one here in the East Coast in Pennsylvania. They had something like 47 speakers, 45 speakers over a whole week. That's a lot. Especially if you're number 45.
Well, it's a good party, and you just hope that you could stay sober if you're one of the last 2 or 3 speakers there.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's the reality of it all, you know, because it is a good time. I like the Paracons. I've only done a couple. You know, this will be my 4th one that I've done, and I've highly enjoyed the entire experience so far. It's a learning experience. It's something that you know, we have as experiencers, as hosts, as whatever we do, you know, it helps build an audience and credibility, you know. But do you think that a lot of these different types of Paracons out there right now are just, you know, there's a lot of one-offs, I guess is what I'm saying, Butch. And do you think there's too many of them now? Or do you think that there is maybe not enough of quality out there?
I don't think there's enough quality out there. I've been to a couple Paracons, and not as a speaker, as a guest, or, you know, just a nosy person. And some of the stuff was, you know, I really enjoyed. And then some of the stuff was kind of like rehashed old stuff, talking about Roswell, or talking about Bigfoot in a particular area in Northern California or Oregon. You know, a well-known story. Well, you know, that gets a little boring after a while, because you know the story, and you basically know what the speaker's going to say next. You're ahead of him. You know, it's like you read the book, and he's going through it again the day after. But I think I like the smaller ones where you might have like 150, 200 people, and they have a question and answer period. A couple of years ago, a matter of fact, in 2015, we held one. We did a roundtable, which I really liked, where, and that's the second time we did one. We did one out in Beaver County, Pennsylvania, but we did this one up in Allentown, Bethlehem area here in Pennsylvania. And it was 5 groups, investigators, 2 investigators from each group, so over 10 people. And we were kind of up on the stage with our laptops and our notebooks and all that stuff. And it was up to the crowd. What do you want to know? Do you want to know what we do, how we do it, what cases we did, what cases we got going? And it was really a lot of fun. And most of these conferences, there is no audience participation. I mean, you know, it's like you go up there, you stand there for an hour, you give your spiel, and a round of applause, and you're back off sitting at your table. Where this was, we were on the table, so to speak, and it was up to them. And it started out a little slow, like nobody knew what to ask, and then one guy just really fired it off, and it just caught. And, you know, so there we are trying to answer questions, you know, typing on computers, trying to figure out what the guy's talking about, or where it happened, or looking at the area, and you know, all that kind of stuff. It was pretty cool. I like round tables. I think the audience participation, even that library stuff that we do every now and then, you'll get, that's more of a one-on-one also. That's almost like a round table where you give your little presentation, who you are, what you do, and then you just throw it out to the crowd and say, okay, I'm here to answer your questions. What do you want to know? And sometimes that little 1-hour thing that was scheduled is now a 3-hour thing. And then, you know, you head to the diner to go get some lunch or supper or whatever, and they follow you. So it's that's pretty neat. I like that stuff.
That's what I want. I want groupies, Butch. I want some groupies.
Groupies, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I want paranormal groupies or UFO groupies. Now, you know what? It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. I'm not nervous about going up on stage. It's just, you know, with the PowerPoint and everything, it's more the fact of just making sure you get it right and that, you know, the computer works properly, everything's hooked up, but I'm sure it'll go just fine. Let's move on here because there's an important topic that a lot of people around here have been talking about recently, and you have done investigation on it. And believe it or not, we talked about this on the first time I ever brought you on this show, which is about human mutilations.
Okay.
And I am, you know, lately we've been getting a lot of people, for some reason, talking about missing people. Maybe that's due to the popularity of David Paulides. I don't know. But a lot of people are wondering about aliens, missing people, and whether or not there is some account or recording of people who are being taken off this planet.
Mm-hmm.
So you on that show brought up a story that there was 1.3 million people that go missing annually in the United States. I'm going to let you take it from there.
Okay, well, how we arrived at the number was, it was first, as a matter of fact, the first big conference I ever spoke at, and I was actually filling in. I wasn't one of the chosen speakers, I was a fill-in. One of the speakers who was going to talk about missing persons got sick, and I took his place. So I only had like a week to find all this information out and go through everything. And while I'm going through all these stories of abductions and missing people, it just kind of struck me like, so how many missing people can there be? I mean, are we talking about 150, 200, 2,000? I have no clue. So using my former background, I went to the NCI Statistics, which is the National Crime Information Center. Now, that is open to the public. Anybody can look it up. And what it is every year the FBI sends out a stack of papers. Now, they probably do it electronically now, but when I was still a police officer, it was a stack of papers. And in that stack of papers is your crime reports for your area, your district, your bailiwick. So it'll say on how many bicycles were stolen, how many burglaries did you have, how many rapes, how many murders, how many missing persons. If it was missing persons, what age, they go like from infant to 5, from 5 to 15, that kind of stuff. And how many stolen cars, how many burglaries, how many bank robberies, how many officers do you have, what's your patrol area, how many square miles to patrol, just a whole lot of information. And what they do is they compile that every year. Now, they're always 2 years behind, so I can give you the numbers from 2016. I have those. So when I started looking, I was flabbergasted. I almost fell off my chair. Actually closed it out and went in, opened it up again, thinking I did something wrong, but no, the numbers are there. So I started back at 1991, okay? So my speech was actually in 2008, so I had those numbers too. So I went and got those first. I went and got the 2008 numbers. So in 2008, there were 770,000 missing persons reported, filed. Now, that's just the United States. That's the United States, Hawaii, and Canada, Hawaii and Alaska. It has nothing to do with any place else in the world, just the states. And it came up with 770,000 missing persons reports were filed. Now, then you got to break it down, because they break it down for you, so it's very easy to follow. Approximately 95% of those are found. Okay, 75% are runaways under the age of 18 years. 20 are spousal abuse. 20% are spousal abuse, murders, elderly ransom, demands, etc. Then there's this number that just was kind of odd, but I took it down, and it said that 5% were never found. So when I looked up what their definition of never found was, that means nothing. Nothing's ever found. No body, no clothing, no whereabouts, no last location, nothing. Nothing's found. So that number comes up to 38,900. So then I went from the reports, I went all the way back to 1991. That's when this, they put it on the internet. Now, before, like I said, it was paper. Now it's on the internet in 1991. So in 1991, up until now, there are approximately 13,800,000. But if you use the same math, which it kind of stays with that same percentage of 5%, 1 year it went to 4 3/4, not quite 5%, and then 1 year it was actually 5.1%. But forgetting that, sticking with the 5%, that means that 700,000 are never found. Right? They're just gone. So over that 17-year period, that's 40,795 people a year are missing. There's no trace men, women, children, makes no difference. They're gone. They're never found again. They're not listed under runaways. They're not listed under spousal abuse, ransoms, or anything like that, and they're just gone. So the last one I did was 2015, 2016. So the numbers came up, but they're still at that 5%. Now, why it stays at 5%, I have no idea. It does go up and down, but very little. So at this point, since 1991, there's like 30 million people missing in the United States. That's a lot of folks. And they're never found. They're gone.
That's almost Canada's entire population, gone in 28 years.
Now, think of this. Now, these are reports that are being tracked. So what about a country like Africa? Or, a continent like Africa? Or Australia? I mean, there have been whole villages gone in Africa with thousands of people that are never reported. They're just gone. They were here one day and they're gone the next. The latest case was, I believe, Central Africa, where all the men went to work that morning. They came back home at night. The meals were on the table. Wash was hanging on the lines. Everything was the way it was supposed to be. Every old person, woman, child, dog, chicken, cat, whatever they had, were gone. Never seen again. And the meals were still on the table, and some were still on the fire. So, who's taking these people? Now, David Paulides has been doing great work. Now, his work is a little different than this because he's kind of staying in the parks, the state parks, the federal parks, which got my interest, and I read 411 East, which is this area, and I also got his cluster map, his new cluster map, not the first one, the second one, and I wanted to see how many missing persons were in our Lichen Loop, trying to make a connection between missing persons and the Lichen Loop. Well, there were only 39 missing people in Pennsylvania that he could find in state parks. Now, this isn't downtown Philadelphia or Reading or any place else. This is just in the parks, 39 people. So out of the 39 people, one is found dead, probably from a heart attack, old age, during hunting season. Another one is lost but located. And another one is never found, ever. But the thing that stuck out to me was that almost all of those 39 reports for Pennsylvania were children and young children. 5, 6, 10, 12, that's it. All young children, no teenagers, no young adults, 18, 19, 20, nothing like that. They were all young kids. And the ones that were found and the ones missing, they were older folks that were, went out, got lost, or had a heart attack, or died of the conditions of the weather. So it's something that has always stuck in my head, the amount of missing people and where they were going. Now, had we found a number of reports in our Lichen Loop where people were never found missing, then I would say there was something out there that was feeding. I believe that's the track that you're going to see David on for a long time, because some of the stuff that's found, like clothing and bits and pieces of people that he has located over time, have been attacked, chewed on, or, there's blood associated with some type of crime. But the ones that are really intriguing are where he finds somebody that they can't find for a long, long time, and then they find the clothing all folded neatly, shoes on the side of each other, socks all rolled up, the whole 9 yards. And then there's the body, which is just laid there bleached. So the missing people around the world must be phenomenal in numbers. But just the amount of people missing in Pennsylvania and the United States is just truly bizarre. Now, Could they be taken? Okay, you could say that, but by who? Who's taking them? And why are they never popping up later if they are alive, which I doubt? Is there something out there that, in the grand scheme of things, and I'm not saying any particular animal or cryptid or anything like that, that is feeding on the humans? Or it's certainly not slave labor. It is not sex trafficking. I mean, that's stuff they got a pretty good handle on. They pretty much know where that's all going and where it's coming from. But this is stuff where people are just, they vanish. They're just zero. There's nothing left. There's no way to find them. They are just gone. Now, I can understand a couple hundred people being missing, but when you're talking about a period of time like that and you're into the 30 million range, if those people were still around, you'd be falling over the bodies. They'd be everywhere. They'd be popping up like popcorn. But nothing's found. Nothing. Not a piece of clothing. Not a person that saw them for the last time. Or it's just like there are so many reports that were found where people went to walk the dog. So a guy gets up and takes his dog out for a walk. The dog comes back, leash is still on the dog, and the guy's never seen again. Another guy, well-known contractor in his area, gets on his little moped and runs down to the mailbox at the end of the drive. The moped's sitting there. The moped is still running. It's in neutral. The mail is still in the box, and he's never been found. His construction company is, I guess, they're up to a $500,000 reward to find him. That's been many, many years now. I mean, those kind of disappearances are just totally off the wall. People sitting in a parking lot at a Walmart waiting for their wife to come out. Wife comes out, car's running, windows down, radio's on. Husband's gone. He's just gone. His cell phone's laying there, or people have gone swimming. Now, that, you got to give a little piece of credit there because they could have drowned. But not in their own pool, at a pool party, where the pool is surrounded by people in the pool and around the pool. But old Joe goes missing during the party. How do you explain that stuff? Of course, the first thing comes to mind is, well, somebody's taken them. You know, somebody has that wherewithal to get it done, that they can just snatch somebody whenever they want to, wherever they want to, and however they want to. But it's just, it's not like there's a struggle or there's, weapons involved or there's a blood scene or blood splatter or anything like that. It's just like the guy walking his dog. The dog on the leash. Goes down the block. Wife sees him at the end of the block. Next thing you know, she's in the kitchen. The dog comes in with the leash. She thinks the husband's home. The husband's not home. She goes looking for the husband, reports him missing. They never found him. Never found any part of him. A little boy in Australia, running around the house, chasing his little sister, or older sister. Little boy's in front, she's in the back, she's chasing him around the house. The grandmother's sitting on the front porch, she's watching him go by. They're yelling and carrying on like kids that age do. The mother's doing dishes at the sink. She watches him run by. Next thing you know, the little girl starts yelling for her brother, and she goes out, and they haven't seen him since. He's gone. There were people out cutting the grass, said there was nobody came up. Nobody came down the road because it's a one-way road up and down. There's the only child predator in the area was at work, and everybody vouched for him. He was at work, including his boss. No animals around like that. There was no large birds or anything. The neighbor next door was cutting grass. He saw the kids. He said they went around the house, and then the little girl came around the house, but the little boy didn't. And he saw that. So where'd that kid go? How did he get abducted? How did he go missing? So when you think about it, there's only one way that can happen. I mean, either it's a force that we're unfamiliar with or it's a force that we are familiar with. Now, of course, the force we would be familiar with would be our space brethren. But, that's a lot of people. That's a lot of people over a period of time. And it goes on till this day. I mean, and it's all over the world. It's not just here. I mean, there are a number of stories out of Australia and New Zealand, Hawaii, the Great Plains, Colorado, Florida. I mean, now Florida, that one's a little different because, I kind of take that one with a shot of whiskey because, these people go out fishing in the bayou or the swamp area and they don't realize how quick an alligator can take them. If you've ever seen a video where an alligator attacks something, you won't believe how fast they are. That's like a torpedo coming at you. And, he takes you down and your lunch and you're never seen again. I mean, they don't let stuff bob to the water. I mean, they tuck that stuff under stuff and they'll hide that body, just like a bear does. A bear kills anything. He hides the carcass because he's going to work on it for whatever till he's done with it. And then you have, and there are legitimate missing people where two hikers actually it was 4 hikers in California, 2 couples, and the 19-year-old girl was up front, her boyfriend was in back, then followed by the other couple, and he turned his head. He heard what he thought was a muffled thump, and when he turned around, all he saw was the tail of a mountain lion, but the girl was gone. So she was taken by the lion. They go right for the throat. She never would have uttered a word. And he jumped off of like a 10-foot high rock outgrowth. So he just hit her and took her right into the woods. They never found her.
Up here, where we are, you have to, when you go into the forest, you have to keep your eyes up because all the cougars sit up above in the trees.
Yeah, that's the same thing out west. They do the same thing. They'll pick a high ground because you're not looking there. They know it. And, when they're coming down on you, that's just more force that they get to knock you over, whether you're an animal or a human, it doesn't matter. But, they're very powerful animals. And, but as far as the missing persons, I don't think anybody has an answer. Everybody has a lot of summation. I mean, we all figure, well, it could be a space brother, it could be this, could be that, could be this. But we don't know. We just don't know. Is it some unknown force? Is it that, are these people walking through an opening? Is a veil lifted and they walk in, they're never seen again? Quite legitimately walk in. I mean, it's not like they're doing anything that, like walking his dog. The dog, he turns around and walks back with the dog and he inadvertently walks through a veil and goes to another dimension or whatever. Don't know. We just don't know. I mean, it's
Butch, I'm curious about these numbers that you got from your FBI guy. Does that include, like, especially with children? We know there is a big, big sex trade industry around North America. Children going missing, being, taken to other countries or other states or provinces and used in vile, heinous ways that really only requires a bullet to the person's head to get them off of this planet. But does that study account for the children who go missing with or that they fall into the hands of sex slave traders?
No, it doesn't. It's strictly missing person reports. And the type of the sex trade, there are so many predators and there are so many ways they catch them now off the internet. I mean, I can pick up any paper or look at any place on the internet where there's news, and one or two of these guys, they just got 4 nabbed tonight in San Diego, where they were grabbing young Mexican kids, inviting them to a party and then snatching them. And so I think they're pretty much up on that game because, these guys can't do this in absolute secrecy because they got to break out to find these people, but they really don't touch on that, so I'm assuming that that's really not into those numbers.
Because, I mean, the way the traffic is going with women and sex slaves, I mean, it's a disgusting topic to even talk about. I got to tell you, it's very hard to even roll it off my own tongue here because I could just imagine one of these, can't even use the word on the air, doing something like that to my son or one of my daughters. I mean, 25 to life sounds pretty damn good for me.
Well, a lot of times, though, there's a struggle, there's clothing left, or there's some piece of jewelry or a handbag or sneakers or something from the person that's been snatched. I mean, they put up a fight. These people disappear. There is no fight. They're just gone. And I was just looking at something Eric put up in here, and he's not too far off the realm. It has been discussed on human sacrifices. I mean, there are a lot of groups that we don't even know about that are all over the world that still practice human sacrifice. So I guess my only problem with that is I could probably see that a whole lot easier to do in a country like Africa. But I find that really hard to think that could happen in downtown Manhattan where, somebody would see something. In the middle of nowhere, you can do anything you want, and there's nobody to even watch or see. And in those countries, and it's sad because in those countries, the United States is the only country that keeps records like this. No other country keeps records. There's no records like this in Canada. There's no records like this in the United Kingdom. There's no records like this in France, Germany, or anyplace else. The United States is the only one that keeps these kind of records. So when you look at it worldwide and just, take 5% of the total world population, then what?
Well, I mean, if you add up all the countries together, Butch, you're looking, 150 million people a year? 200 million people a year going missing?
Could be. Sure.
Have you ever investigated the idea that maybe some of these people run into some sort of portal where they are transferred to, the same timeline, but in a different realm?
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, missing people, human sacrifice, space brethren, there's just so many things you can throw at this, but proving it, that's the hard part. I mean, it is so hard to come up with because whatever it is, it has perfected a way of making somebody vanish. I mean, just vanish. And from an everyday thing like walking the dog or doing the dishes or watching the kid run around the house. Are they being taken to another dimension? We just don't know. It's just such a strange thing that there's really nothing to back it up. I mean, there's no evidence. There's nothing found. I mean, if you found the person and you could see that they were tortured or beaten or whatever, and then their body was just buried in a shallow grave, and you got a local cult that's working down the road. I mean, you can probably put two and two together there. But when you have nothing, absolutely nothing, zero, they're here and then they're gone. I mean, they go down and get the mail, and they don't come back. They're not there. Everything they went for is there, but they're not there. I've heard people put stuff out where, the giant birds picked them up and took them away. Well, somebody would have to see that eventually. And there is just so many different things that could be and could happen. But to be honest, I wouldn't even know where to start. I mean, there are so many cases. Which case would you pick that you would think you would have a shot at? When I every now and then I'll look through Pennsylvania, has their own thing about missing people. Most states do. They have their own web page, usually through their local state police for that particular state. And even in there, people are found. Maybe 20, 30 years later, but they're found. They may be found after somebody's digging up their cellar and they find Joe's wife that he said ran off with the other guy. He buried her. He killed her. Somebody's found behind a wall, or somebody was at a building and they slipped between this and that and they got stuck and nobody realized they were missing and they just filled it with concrete. There's just so many things. But to find out why, first of all, and how is, I would say, pretty much impossible. I mean, there's just so many. If we were talking about a couple hundred, yeah, you could probably zero in and really throw everything at that and go after it. But no, we're talking about millions of people. I mean, back then when I did this first study in 2008, there's 40,000 people, that are gone just for that year. So you take the 40,000 times X number of years, and now you're in the millions. And that's just the U.S. That's no place else. I just don't know what to do or how to even say it, and I just like I'm looking at what Eric just said about underground military bases. Look, there have been many reports of people that were abducted said they were taken to underground military bases, but they came back. They came back and they made that report. But how many were ever taken to those underground bases and never came back? We'll never know. You can't get near them. I mean, we have one here in Pennsylvania. You can't get near that place. I messed around one night in the computer, and I lost my computer through it. They burned it up.
That's an interesting story. You got to tell everybody about that.
Okay, so we have this. It was a very expensive story, by the way. I just got in a computer. But I've always used IBM Think Centers because they're very powerful and they're very quick and they're very expensive, but they work and they last a long time. I just gotten it. I only had it about 6 months. Then one night I'm doing a paper for a thing I was going to give. And I thought I'd do it on underground bases. So I did the normal ones that everybody pretty much knows about. And then the Mount Weather Station and the base here at Raven Rock in Pennsylvania is right on the Pennsylvania-Maryland border, and it is actually the underground Pentagon. So when 9/11 happened, they took Cheney there. Cheney was taken to the underground base there. It's very deep, it's very long, it's very well guarded. It's got 2 entrances, and you're not going to get within 50 yards of the place unless you want to get shot. So I was on their website. They have a website, and they tell you what they do and how they do it and what it's there for, communications in case of war or catastrophe, And I just kept getting deeper and deeper, and I don't know what page I got into, and I saw a little flash up in the right-hand side of the screen, and the screen went black. And I went like, okay, now what? So I looked over. My computer was turned off. I went, that's nuts. So started the computer up. Well, nothing would happen. It wouldn't start. I couldn't get it to start. So I checked other computers that were running, and they were okay. Everything was running fine there. So it wasn't an IP glitch or anything, from my provider. So I called the gentleman that does all the work on my computers, and I said, I got an issue with this computer. And he said, well, bring it down. So I took it down, and I said, call me when you figure out what it is, whatever it is, fix it. And he called me like 2 hours later, and he said, what did you do? And I said, well, I didn't do anything. Well, he said, what happened? And I said, well, I was on a website, and then boom, boom, and a little red light flashed up in the corner, and I said, it just went dark, and that was it. The computer was off. He said, you didn't turn it off. I said, no, I didn't touch it. I didn't touch anything. I didn't have my hand on the keyboard or the mouse. I said, it just went black. He said, well, I don't know how to tell you this, but there's nothing in your computer. I said, what do you mean there's nothing in your computer? He said, your hard drive has been wiped clean. Operating system is gone. There is nothing in your computer. Your computer is an empty box, and if we tie a rope around it and throw it over the side of a boat, you'll have a great boat anchor, and that's it. It's not repairable. I went, wow. He said, where were you looking when you did this? And I said, I was just on some military site. And he says, oh, my God, don't ever do that. I said, you think I got into something I shouldn't have? And he said, yeah, I'd say so. He said, Butch, he said, this is clean. There's nothing in this computer. Nothing. Zero. Nada. There is no data in this computer at all. No operating data, nothing from the manufacturer, nothing. It is cleaned. It is gone. So I had to order a new computer, which I did. And I told a couple members of the group what had happened. And one of my investigators had just bought a brand new Sony Vaio laptop. Very expensive. It's like $6,000. This thing was amazing. Don't he do the same thing that I did? Same site. And he's messing around in this site about 3 o'clock in the morning. And he said, screen just went black. So he took it to his computer, the place where he bought the computer, and the guy says, this is fried. He said, this is junk. He said, there's nothing we can do with this. He said, the motherboard's gone, hard drive's gone, everything in here is gone. There's nothing. There's no emails. There's no websites. There's nothing. It's empty. So, needless to say, if anybody decides to mess around those military sites, don't do it. And then as I looked into that further, a computer guy told me, an IT guy actually, he says, all they got to do is push a button and you're done in a matter of seconds. He said, by the time that your computer screen went black and the computer shut off, it was already empty. He said, that's been well known for years. I went so why didn't you tell me before I did this? And he said, you don't do it. You just don't do it. If you're going to a military site, like look at an airport or old airplanes or something, I'm not talking about that, but I'm thinking you mess around covert stuff like CIA stuff or DOD stuff or underground bases or places that you really shouldn't be, like Area 51. Now, Area 51, they've put up so many fake sites of Area 51 that for you to find the real site for Area 51, it would never happen. You'd never find it. They've loaded up so much junk. It's just you just beat a dead horse. But I don't do that anymore. It got very expensive.
I can see where that would be expensive. So, Butch, when you are, getting back to the whole people who are missing here, because we got about 5 minutes here before we got to go to break again. Another fast hour with you, my friend. Do you believe that most of these people who gone missing have been taken by aliens, maybe walked into different dimensions or some sort of portal, much like we saw with the Philadelphia experiment, except maybe on a more natural cause? What's your hypothesis?
Could be any one of those. It really could. When you think about it, none of those are out of the realm of reality. Any one of them could happen. Just because we don't know the technology doesn't mean it isn't there. Who thought that Tesla was going to put a convertible up in space? You would have said that last year, they would have laughed at you. It's up there. So,
the flat earthers aren't believing it, though.
Did you see their ad? Did you see the flat earthers ad?
No.
I should post that on Facebook. They put an ad out. It said, it's Flat Earth Society. Follow us. We're all around the globe.
Yes, I have seen that one. That's funny.
Idiots. Follow us. We're all around the globe. Okay.
Yeah, that one is funny.
Must be talking about a different flat Earth, right?
I know. Could be. Could very well be.
No, seriously. Like you said, it could be any one of those. It could be another dimension. They could walk through a veil.
But what's your gut feeling? What's your gut feeling?
My gut feeling, for the amount of people that have to be in it, has to be some type of portal. It has to be some type of area that's unknown to us, where, like I said, these people just disappear. It's not like there's a struggle, gunshots, fires, police are called, fire departments. No. These people just doing normal stuff, washing dishes, going to get the mail, walking the dog, sitting in the parking lot waiting for your wife to come out of Walmart, and they're gone. That's not kosher. That's not a struggle. That's not a kidnapping. That is something that is beyond thinking rationally. It has to be something that we don't know, or the few people that do know. It's just, I don't know what to put my finger on, but it happens, and it happens a lot. And it's been happening for a long time.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? It's every parent's nightmare. It really is. It doesn't matter if your child is 30 years old or your child is 3 years old. It really doesn't matter. It's a nightmare. I know when I worked at the radio station in Vancouver, my 7 years there, we probably had 5 or 10 people go missing walking home from downtown that night over a bridge.
Mm-hmm.
And poof, they're gone. The last camera footage from the city cameras was them walking across the Burrard Street Bridge or the Knight Street Bridge or something along those lines, Canby Street Bridge, and poof, they're gone. Nobody to see them again.
One of the very best documented cases was it was in the West somewhere, Wichita, Kansas, I believe. A group of young people in their 20s, early 20s, all friends. There was like 15 or 20 of them, right? They went out for a birthday party at the local bar, and the bar was closing up. They were all leaving. The couple people walked to their vehicle. There were about 6 or 7 left, and one gentleman says, "Well, look, I'll go get the car and we'll go." And so they watch him walk to the parking lot, which is a matter of less than 100 feet. They see him walk around to the driver's side, and then they're still waiting on him. And they're waiting on him. They're waiting on. Well, they thought, well, maybe he fell and hurt himself or something. They got there. The keys were laying on the ground, and he was gone. He's never been seen again. And that Wichita Police Department still has that open as a missing person. They searched the area. I mean, and this takes a matter of a few minutes. This was not like 20 minutes or 30. This was a matter of a handful of minutes. And the keys were laying there. They saw him at the car. They saw him bend down like he was going to put the key in the door. And they didn't see him anymore, so they walked over thinking, well, he fell over, maybe he had too much to drink or whatever. So they walk over. Keys are on the ground. He's gone. No struggle. Nobody around. The parking lot was pretty much empty except for 5 or 6 cars, so they had plenty of view of anything anybody would have tried to drag him off or anything like that. And he was a big boy. He was no little guy. So where'd he go?
Aliens. It's got to be aliens.
You know what one guy said to me one time? He said, somebody owed their soul, and somebody came and took their soul.
That's a deep, profound answer.
And I'm going like, what makes you say that? He said, well, how many people do sell their soul? I said, I have got a clue. And he said, so if you don't pay up, they come and take it. Or maybe they just take it because they want it. That gave me a headache.
Interesting theory. Butch, I'm going to put you on hold here because we are going to step away for our final break of the night. Butch Witkowski from UFO Cop is here the final Monday of every month, talking everything cryptid, strange. We're going to continue with missing people and more stories like that right after the break here. Stay tuned. We got more SOR right around the corner.
Hello, SOR listeners. Lorian Fenton here. Let me ask you, now that disclosure's happened, what does it mean for ufology? For answers, join us at UFOCon 2018 in South San Francisco, California, March 23rd through 25th. Keynote speakers Stephen Bassett, Grant Cameron, and Melinda Leslie address the current disclosure agenda. Dave Scott, yes, you're Dave Scott, and Lynn Buchanan tell of amazing alien encounters. Get your tickets at caufocon.com. That's caufocon.com.
Are you tired of being blocked, shadow banned, or placed in jail for simply posting your thoughts on social media? Social Media Freedom can take care of that for you. Social Media Freedom is the newest and one of the best free new apps that allows you the freedom to post what you want, when you want. It takes seconds to download from your app store. Come join the tribe at Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free.
The first annual Caribou Paracon is happening September 28th to 30th in the 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Brought to you by the Canadian Society of Questers and Spaced Out Radio. Come listen to our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Elizabeth Anglin, Paisley Town, Mike Moran, Eric Cooper, and more. It's a 3-day supernatural adventure at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Tickets for the weekend are $150 Canadian. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
To the dawn,
We're lighting the void on Saturday nights on Spaced Out Radio. Hey, this is Joe Roop, and I'm hanging out in SOR headquarters every Saturday night, bringing you the latest news when it comes to the weird and strange. Bigfoot, occult, UFOs, ghosts, and everything in between, I got you covered. You can tune in to spacedoutradio.com starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. Come travel into the void with us on Spaced Out Saturdays.
Not ready for bed on Saturday night? Right after Spaced Out Saturdays, hop on over to S4 with Corey Ruiz and me, Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. With S4, there are no limits to what we try and uncover. From government conspiracies to helping clean up the paranormal, no topic is safe on S4. We get to the heart of the matter, of the subjects you want to learn more about. So tune in on S4 starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, only on spacedoutradio.com.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4COP. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories, from alien encounters to the latest conspiracies. You won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter Online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know the truth? Do UFOs exist? Are aliens real? Are the governments hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO seekers, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow along with us as we journey across the United States, visiting UFO hotspots and alien hotspots, trying to document the UFO phenomenon. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories.
It's Cosmic Sundays with me, Elizabeth Anglin, in Cosmic Passport. Let me take you down a 3-hour spiritual journey where we will get into everything from ET contact to Psychic Sundays. It's a journey of listening and learning together with some of the best professionals in their fields. You can tune in to Cosmic Passport at spacedoutradio.com every Sunday starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back to the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio. Tonight, I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the program, we have Geraldine Orozco coming in. We are talking consciousness, we are talking ET communication, and so much more. Geraldine will also be speaking with me at the end of March in San Francisco at UFOCon 2018, so I'm very much looking forward to getting her on the air. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans, and over 160 countries around the world. We are also live on The Fringe FM, and if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to revolution.radio and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Schnittlauk. Schnittlauk is your password. Yes, that is the German pronunciation, Bill. Schnittlauk. Or Schnittlock, if you want to go English. Bill sets a password each and every night, right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, you can watch us live on periscope.tv. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio if you want to connect live with me during the show as well. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, you can follow me at Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. We would appreciate that. We are on iHeartRadio in the United States. TalkStream Live. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download and subscribe to our shows on iTunes. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for $5 a month. Rock out to some Bumblefoot, shop at the Spaced Out Radio store, read The Encounter online, and you can watch great videos from UFO Seekers, Contact TV, and so much more. We're 2 periods down, 1 period to go here on Spaced Out Radio. Butch Witkowski from UFO Cop is here. Butch joins us the final Monday of every month with Strange Days. That happens. Butch, welcome back.
Yes, sir. Let's go.
Right before the break, and pretty much the last half hour, we were talking about missing and vanishing people. Now, a lot of people are being taken by extraterrestrials. This we do know. How many of these people missing do you think are actually leaving this planet?
Oh, I don't know how you'd even come up with a number. Because most abductees only report their experience later on in life. I mean, if they had an experience as an abductee and they came back, of course, they were younger, or it was somebody else in the family, or it was a number of members of the family, or of the same family. I think that'd be really hard to put a number on. I don't know how you would do it, because although abduction cases reports are up again this year so far, and they have been for the last 4 years going up, I don't know if you could say that that's actual abduction cases, or are, because there's so many new books out on abduction, and there's so many new soothsayers out there doing abductions that it's crazy. Although the abduction conferences, of which I think there were 5 at one time, there's probably down to 2 now. And I don't know how you even put a number on that, Dave. I really don't.
But when it comes to mutilations, because you have studied mutilations, give our audience a little bit of a rundown of some of these scenarios of what is happening.
Well, it actually started coming out in media in the 50s, mid-50s, where bodies were found mutilated exactly like cattle. So same parts were missing, same holes in the body as cattle, same, pretty much the same everything. I mean, if you lay a cattle mute aside of a human mute, I mean, it was the same thing. I mean, they looked the same. There were a lot of cases, and actually I stumbled on human mutilations when I was doing missing persons. And I came upon a case in Brazil, Guaraparanga Dam in Brazil, which is a dam that is a freshwater man-made dam, water supplies water to Sao Paulo. And a couple guys were out fishing on the lake, and they saw what they thought was a body laying on the shoreline. So instead of going in and disturbing the body, or they got close enough to see it was a body, they went and got the police. Now, the police show up, and along with them comes a forensic team. And they photograph the body, they document all the different damage to the body, and they pretty much really start to realize that in this heat, this guy should be blown up like, a balloon. And the coroner placed the guy's, the time of him being dead, at 40 to 70 hours. And that's approximately how long he was also reported as missing. They knew who he was. They weren't bullet holes. They were the same perfect circular punctures that are found in cattle. Tongue was removed, jaw, left side of the jaw, ear, inner ear, tongue, prostate gland was removed through the urethra tube, anus was cored out, lymph node, there were on the back and the chest, there were holes where the lymph nodes were removed, lower intestinal tract was removed through the navel. I mean, typical cattle mutilation, typical. And the autopsy report documented everything, and they said that he died of massive trauma. Now, one of the things that was, again, just like cattle mutilation, there was no blood in the body, very little blood at all. So the blood, you can see the pictures of the scene. They're on the internet, and there's no puddles of blood laying around. There's no sign of a struggle. His underwear had to be pulled down to do what they did there, but then, for whatever reason, they pulled his underwear back up. Kind of strange. And one of the things that appeared in the autopsy report said that the body suffered vital reaction. Now, vital reaction is a legal term used during a forensic examination that gives the coroner or the doctor performing the autopsy approximate time of death. And vital reaction is like if you would stab somebody in the leg. Of course, they'd pull away, try to get away from the knife, which is already in their leg, and it would cause black and blue and, ripping and tearing around that knife wound. If you would take that knife and stick it into a dead person, there is nothing. They're not moving. I mean, all you're going to have is the exact hold of the knife. There's no blood, there's no ripping, tearing, there's no black and blue from moving around. So what they concluded was that when they removed the skull cap and looked at the brain, the hematomas, there were massive amounts of small hematomas, which meant that the guy died a very agonizing death. You would see that type of hematomas in the brain where you had many carrying on, would be somebody what might be slowly crushed, between a piece of machinery. But there is no, what it boils down to is when this all took place, this guy was alive when all this was done. Now, had he been dead when all this was done, there would be no bruising. There would just be holes. There would be marks, of course. Organs would be missing, but there would be no bruising. When you look at the photographs, this guy is just a mass of bruises at the holes. You know, so he was fighting, trying to get away from what was going on. And I mean, I've attended over time. I've attended dozens of autopsies, and you know, you can see, like, especially in a car accident where you get there and the person's been laying there for maybe 3 or 4 hours, and maybe the car rolled over or the body moved and got punctured, and there's no blood. I mean, it's a different wound than the rest of the wounds where the person was alive. So this guy was alive, but they found the same thing. There was a case about with a horse called Snippy the pony, which was actually a family pet, and didn't come in to eat, and they went out looking for her, and they found her, and the two investigators, which were pretty sharp, he said to the other guy, he says, well, you know, the eye is removed. The viscous fluid from the eye should have flowed down that side of the face, correct? And he went like, well, yeah. He said, well, look at this. And they really looked at the horse, the mare, and the viscous fluid from the eye flowed down the snout and off the edge of the end of the snout. So the horse was actually standing up when this all took place. And again, assuming that he was standing up, he was probably still alive. So do these, whoever does it, just put these victims under some kind of a trance, or, you know, that they don't feel anything, or mentally they're feeling everything, but they're still able to know what's going on? It's hard to tell. I mean, because these, you know, some of these bodies, like one that was found out in Idaho, I mean, it laid out there for 2 weeks in the sun, and it looked like the guy died the day before yesterday. No bloating at all. None of these bodies show bloating. None of these bodies show anything like you would have at a post-mortem where you had somebody laying out along the highway or in the woods for 3 or 4 or 5, 6 days. I mean, they look just like this just happened. And it's amazing that you have so many of these cases in that time period from the 50s up until the 90s, and then they kind of drop off. But then these cases in England start popping up. And so we don't know. There hasn't been any lately. Cattle mutilations, yeah, but not human mutilations that have been found. So I don't know where it stops from there or why it stopped.
Do you think this was any particular race that is going on doing this, or do you think it's the Greys that are visiting? What's your opinion?
My opinion is who's ever doing it is really well advanced. We don't have anything that can do those kind of cuts. There have been many forensic doctors and forensic veterinarians that have looked at these animals and people, and they all say the same thing. We don't have anything that can make that perfect a cut. When they can cut the udders off of a cow, excuse me, lose my voice. When they can cut the udders off of a cow and not even scratch any one of the 3 stomachs inside that cow, how do you do that? I mean, you can't. The one doctor did a necropsy on a cattle out in Colorado. He said, I couldn't do that on my best day. And he said, I'm pretty good at this. He said, but how would you know how deep the scalpel is going? And he said, cowhide is tough. And here's a perfectly round hole. The udders are removed. You can see the stomachs, but there's a perfectly round cut. He said, now, we do have lasers. He said, but to use that type of laser, he said, you have no idea how big that machine is. It's not like, you know, the kind that you find in the hospital where they're making a little incision during, you know, take your appendix out. He said, we're talking about a big machine here. And again, at all these cases, even with this, the one in Brazil, there's no footprints. There was no sign of a struggle. There was nothing. And same thing with cattle. I mean, they can be laying in fresh snow. There's no footprints. No animal, no predator will attack them. And a predator attack and these types of attacks are way different. I mean, you look at an attack of a calf by a wolf, and they go right after the soft tissue, and they just dig right in, and they just bore in there like a maniac. Where these are very precise incisions to remove an eye, or the tongue is removed deep into the throat. I mean that's without doing any other damage. So it's just like everybody, all the guys that do that for, that's all they do is cattle mutilations, all say the same thing. This isn't being done by anybody on this planet. It's just not happening. And he said, I don't care what anybody says. And Chuck Zukowski and Larry Storch and those guys, I mean, they've been doing it for years. And I'm sorry, Ken Storch. And they've been doing it for years. And they said, we can't do it. Nobody can do it. He said, we've had doctors, forensic. They've taken the hide to different places to see what actually made the hole. And he said, if it was a laser type of thing, there would be a burn mark, okay, around that hole that was cut, okay? But there is none. It's clean as a whistle. And he said, and they all say the same thing. Nobody has any idea, other than whoever it is has way advanced knowledge of what we're doing, as far what they're doing as far as these cattle mutilations and human mutilations are.
Eric, our team scientist, says it is actually possible if you use a cautery tool.
It's been tried. Didn't work. Didn't make the same cut. It left a rough edge. The edges on the photographs that we've gotten from forensic scientists and necropsies of these animals from other investigators, it is glass smooth. I mean, it would be like a cookie cutter. I mean, that precise, that clean, that smooth, where I'm just going by, I don't know, I'm just going by what everybody says, that it can't be done. It just can't be done. And especially when eyes are removed, there's actually two cuts. The first cut takes away the eyelid, and let's say that the eye is 1.5 inches. Okay, so the cut around that will be like 2 1/4, and then that takes away the eyelid, and but it only goes down so far. And then the next cut will go inside of that circle, and then the eye is sucked out, but it's not torn out. You know what I'm saying? So where the eye, the socket is connected inside, that looks like it's been disconnected from the inside. So how do they do that? I mean, you would think if it was some kind of suction device, it would just suck it right out, take the whole works. But it doesn't. It just, it's just amazing. It's amazing.
Eerie, too. Very eerie, too, when you look at it.
Yeah. And although I've never investigated one of those cases, I've relied on the guys that have done it for a long, long time. And, which goes from New Mexico state troopers all the way up to Colorado police departments and Texas police departments. And, they've taken those carcasses everywhere, and nobody has an explanation. Nobody. If you'd be talking about soft tissue, like a human, and you can see it on the body in the Guadaparenga case, the hole is, about 2 centimeters round, but it's not perfectly round. Now, that could be shrinking from heat or body decomposition, but it's not a perfectly round circle, where the animals, with that much tougher hide, It's perfectly round. It's a perfect circumference, perfect all the way around. And there's usually, it's like 2 stages. Like I said, there's a first stage, and then there's a second stage where whatever is taken out is removed. And if I would have to say I had to pick somebody that could do that, they're not from here. You know what I mean? These guys are from out of town, way out of town. And until somebody proves otherwise, I mean, that's pretty much what everybody thinks. It's just the way it is. There is no, we haven't, I mean, it's been tried. One guy used a template where they had a piece of hide from one of these cows, and he actually made a template out of stainless steel, and he used that template to go around it with a laser, to make the cut. Didn't look anything like it. It wasn't smooth. It was very rough. It was burned. There were indentations where it got hotter in one spot because he slowed down, and another spot where he had to go back because he didn't go slow enough. It was just very hard to do, and I don't know. That whole thing with mutilations is just beyond me. And first of all, why would they take the same parts off of everything is taken the same way? There is nothing different. I mean, they're not taking a tail, they're not taking a hoof. They take the same parts all the time. Now, there is a theory. The gentleman is in Puerto Rico. He's a doctor, a medical doctor, and some type of physicist. I can't remember. But anyway, his theory was that you have certain chemicals in the body that, like adrenaline, okay? All the parts that are taken have some part of that chemical in them, adrenaline or whatever you want to call it. I'm trying to think of what it's called. Bipolar people don't have it, or have a lack of it. Just went right through my head like a rocket. But anyway, there's all these parts that they're taking all have that same chemical base. And his thinking is they need that chemical base for something. Now, whether it's to travel or to breathe or to eat or to reproduce, serotonin, Eric, you're a genius. That's exactly what it is, serotonin. And he has done some testing on some animals there by overloading them with serotonin and removing serotonin. And how he does it, I have no idea. I mean, the guy's a doctor. I guess he knows what he's doing. But he sent me his paper, and he had to finish. I just got it like 6 months ago, and he said he wouldn't be sending any more because he had to finish up a laboratory job he was doing in Puerto Rico, and the storm that destroyed a lot of stuff. So he's kind of tied up at the moment. But he said, I will send you the second part of this. He said it'll make more sense. But his thing was, they take the same part, whether it's animal or human, the same body parts. They core out the anus. He said only to the lower intestinal tract is what they're interested in. They're not interested in the upper intestinal tract, only the lower intestinal tract. So he said, that's removed. He said, so you have, in some cases, udders, in some cases, the sexual organs, the vaginal area of the cow, or if it's a bull, the penile area and testes. But lungs aren't touched, stomachs aren't touched. The stuff you think that somebody would take, logically thinking. They take the lymph nodes. Now, here's the strange one. In England, the ones they're finding in England have 3 holes. If anybody saw the movie Predator, when he takes aim with his little weapon that's up on his shoulder, it's like 3 beams. It's like a triangle. Well, they're finding these 3 holes in that triangle shape above the sheep's right ear. Only the right ear, not the left. And the brain is missing. The brain stem is intact. The brain is gone. That has only been seen and reported in England and Scotland, where mutilated sheep are found. Other than that, that sheep is done in the same way cattle would be done in Texas. You know, eye missing, tongue missing, this missing, that missing, all that stuff matches, except no cattle mutilations in this country has ever had the brain removed, ever, or the lungs, or a lot of other organs. But in England, only the sheep, and it's that they found these 3 holes in a triangle. They look to be about maybe a 1/4 inch in diameter, the holes. And if I did my calculations right with centimeters, it's 1/4 of an inch. And there's 3 of them, and the brain is missing. But the brain stem is there, and get this, it's not torn away from the brain stem. It's disconnected. It's not ripped away, cut away, or, torn. It's just disconnected. It's like unplugged. It's smooth. It shows no knife marks or no anything like that. So how is this stuff done? I mean, how do they do it? I mean, I just don't understand. And why? I guess the biggest part is why. So do they need some of these parts to make some sort of serum or, I don't know, foie gras? I don't know what the hell they're doing with it, but it's interesting. We don't have any in Pennsylvania, so there's really, I really can't get into actually going on the scene. But the guys that I know have been doing it for a long time. I know them well. And I had a case from South Dakota that I investigated. I didn't go there, but for some reason it came to me, just like this first bipedal, and I still have no idea on how that got here. But I have a case, or had a case, and it was, you know what a riding ring is, right?
Yes.
Okay. This is a very large riding ring, and a young lady is taking her horse, just riding around inside the rink. It's a very large rink. There's nothing protruding out of the walls or anything that could hurt the horse or hurt the rider. It's very smooth, all wooden walls, and she stops in front of a hallway, just puts the reins down, the horse stays where he is, and she goes back to the tack room to get a piece of tack. And when she comes back, the horse is still standing there, and the lower part of his jaw is missing. Cut clean as a whistle. The horse isn't moving. The horse isn't screaming, carrying on. My wife rode on the U.S. equestrian team. You hit a horse on the ass hard enough, and you'll get him to yelp. This horse made no sound whatsoever, and she was only gone less than 5 minutes to walk down to the tack room, get what she wanted, and came back. There's very little blood dripping from the wound. I have a picture of the wound. They called the vet immediately. The vet came out, and the lower part of the lower jaw on the left-hand side was removed. It wasn't ripped out. It was a clean, smooth cut, and his left side jaw was gone. And I have that picture in color. There was nothing he could do to save the horse. So, of course, they put the horse down. And her boyfriend actually submitted the report and the photographs. He lived, I think, 25 miles from where she lived, and she told him to send a report. And I hadn't even gotten back to them with what I saw, because I only had gotten it like in the morning. And that evening he called and said his girlfriend is missing. He didn't know where she at. He reported her to police. She's never been found.
I hate stories like that, Butch. I'm just like cringing here. Cringing.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, when he sent me that second email and he said that she was gone, her apartment, everything was there. I mean, her purse was there, her money was there, her cell phone, keys to the car, everything. She was gone. She's never been found again. Now that's 3 years old now. 4 years old. And I had emailed him right before Thanksgiving to see if he had heard anything. He says, nope, nothing. Her tack, or her saddle, everything is in the tack. Is still in the tack room at the club there. I mean, she's just gone. So was she about to become a victim and she got off that horse before it happened? Who knows?
Insane. Absolutely insane.
You know, there is so much stuff encompassed in these investigations through ufology, paranormal, and cryptozoology, and, you know, not recent, but in the last years, I've come to believe that they're all connected somehow. They're all one. They just have different names.
I don't get it. I don't get it why this would happen. I mean, it's just as odd as, like we were talking about missing people beforehand, Butch, where, you know, or let's take the Todd Sees case, where, you know, investigators check that area over and over again, and 2 days later, that's where his body is found.
Yeah, they walked right past it. Yeah. Yeah. You know, when we went to the site the first time, and the house was already up for sale, nobody was there. I mean, it was an empty house. Fortunately for us, it was unlocked, so we really got to go through everything and photograph the whole works. But we found the tree. We had walked the whole property, and, you know, the road that led up to where the searchers went right past the body. We found the dead tree that was down. Only down tree on the whole property. And I must have stood there for 2 hours, just standing there staring, trying to get in my head how 250 searchers, guys on horseback, guys on ATVs, guys on foot, cadaver dogs, search dogs, family members, are walking past this tree, and the body is right under the tree. And it's not like this is some huge tree that you can hide a body under. I mean, most of them had to be sticking out from under the tree. Plus, the smell. He was in advanced stages of decomposition. And nobody smelled him in 98-degree temperature. The cadaver dogs didn't smell him. The search dogs didn't smell him. The people walking within 25 yards of him didn't smell him. You should have been able to smell this guy down on the highway, which is a quarter mile away. So, another strange one, right? That's what intrigued us with the case. And then there were just so many lies that came out. It's just amazing. But
is there anything new there?
We had gotten contact from 2 witnesses that we were trying to get a hold of for years, and they finally got back to us. Now, neither of them live in the area anymore, so maybe that's the reason they didn't get back to us to begin with, because they did live in the area. And we just had another one come forward. Today is what, Tuesday? Monday. Today's Monday. No, it's Tuesday. Wednesday, last Wednesday, we had a individual that went to school with him, grew up with him, was one of his best friends. And he got a hold of one of my researchers up there and said that he doesn't know a whole lot about what was going on, and so he briefed him. And he said he couldn't wrap his head around the whole thing. He said, but he said, I'll get together everything I can in my mind and what I have, you know, school papers and stuff like that, where he was involved. He was a wrestler. Sports events, girlfriends, anything he can come up with, old friends, and he's going to get that all together and get it to my investigator up there. So that's a real good direction for us, because there are some people, like his school years, all we got was a couple of photographs from a yearbook. That's pretty much it.
So weird.
Yeah. Yes, it is. It's bizarre.
In a few minutes, Butch, we are going to go to the thought of the day here, and we'll get your responses to some of the comments that our listeners have made throughout the day. So I'm going to start off this topic with you tonight about skepticism And the question, today's thought of the day, I do have to admit, did not fully come from me. I was having a chat with Jamie Sexton last night from the Rebel Planet News, and we were talking about something completely different, and he's like, hey, do you mind asking this as the thought of the day? And I said, sure. And so I'm curious to get your opinion on this. He goes, what do you think it would take for skeptics to believe that aliens have already visited Earth?
Oh, my. Skeptic to believe? Pretty much what you'd have to do to prove a bipedal or a Bigfoot. A body. A body. Not a craft, just a body.
Do you think we have become too skeptical?
Well, I think there are people out there that are extremely skeptical. I mean, they'll just I mean, you could actually show them a body and they'd say, "Oh, it's a stuffed doll." I mean, you know. But I think just like in all things cryptid, all things ufology, all things paranormal, you have to have the evidence and the proof right in front of them. It has to be there. It can't be me saying that I found a body. They're not going to believe it. If I show them a regular video or a regular digital photograph, they'll say it was doctored. The only way I can get around that is if I show them a FLIR picture or video. Nothing hides from a FLIR. So I keep saying that, but that's an absolute truth. You can't hide anything from a FLIR. So other than a body or a FLIR of something landing and something taking off, or something on the ground walking around, that's what it's going to take. But that would be the same thing if you were discussing Bigfoot. I mean, look how many skeptics there are about Bigfoot. So you either get a body. I mean, they've been looking for this thing for, 51 years now, 52 years. They haven't found anything yet. So it's going to take a body. It's not going to take DNA, because to take DNA, you have to have a subject to take the DNA from to match up to the DNA to what you got. So if you don't have the DNA from a control subject, you don't have any DNA. And this nonsense of people pulling hairs and throwing up these big white papers on DNA where they say, well, this proves from our DNA studies that Bigfoot mated with a female way back. And this is the result. Or some Neanderthal mated with a female way back, and this is the result. Or some wild man. Well, that's fine. Okay, so where did you get the control subject? I mean, if I want to prove that my father, who passed away back in 1970, is my father, I'd have to take DNA from him, match my DNA, and if it's a match, that's my dad. So that's what you need. You need a control subject. And nobody's had one. Nobody has ever gotten one. And you're going to need the same thing in ufology with an alien to prove that. Now, there are a lot of things that point that they were here, okay, where you would have, cave drawings and, Egyptians, hieroglyphics on a wall that show an airplane or a helicopter. I mean, that could be a lot. That could be a bird. That could be anything. But without a control subject, you have nothing. There is no DNA. So you can say whatever you want to say, but when somebody says, where's the control subject? And you say, well, we don't exactly have that. Well, then you don't have DNA. You just have the DNA of what you think you've got. So when Melba Ketchum did hers and sent it out, what did it come back as? Bird feathers, rabbit hair, droppings, scat from, I think it was a squirrel or something like that, and all kind of dumb stuff. But there was nothing there. It was Bigfoot. But she said that it all pointed to a human-Bigfoot connection, which was nonsense because there's no control subject. That's it. That's the end of it. There's no question about it. I mean, you can't get a DNA match if you only have one person. That's like saying, if I take DNA from your left arm, Dave, and take it from your right arm, they're going to match. Of course they're going to match. It's the same person. But now if I take DNA from your left arm and my right arm, there's no match. Not a match. There may be some factors in there that are close, or maybe some that are even the same. But it's not a match. A match would be identical. My son's DNA and my DNA are the same. My grandchildren will have 80% of the DNA, but again, their mother figures into that, so there's other DNA involved, so it's not like my son and I. So a skeptic, you're going to need a body. That's it, period. Got to throw a body on the table and say, here it is, do what you want. But that's with Bigfoot or anything else, bipedals, any type of creature. I hope I answered the question.
Well, and I fully agree with you that a body is obviously going to mean everything, but there's so many people out there, Butch, as we start the thought of the day, there's so many people out there that just, even if you put something in front of them, they wouldn't even come through. I'm going to get you to hold on 1 second. I got the Mr. Bumblefoot playing Cuterebra in the background here to start off the thought of the day. Thought of the Day happens at every time, at this time every night is what I'm trying to say, where I put a Facebook question on for you. You guys go in and answer it. And I read your responses on the air. So once again, just like we asked Butch, today's thought of the day, what do you think it would take for skeptics to believe aliens have already visited Earth? Thank you, Jamie Sexton, for bringing this question to the table. So Butch, what I'm going to do here with you right now, I'm going to read some of these responses, and I'd like to get your opinion on a few of them, if you don't mind.
Okay.
All right. John says, with some people, evidence could be staring at them right in their face, and they still wouldn't believe that. We have a lot. Is that skepticism, or is that just disbelief, or what I like to call five senses people, Butch?
That's just absolute disbelief. I mean, they wouldn't believe it if it bit them. Yeah, that's not skepticism. Not just, even if you show them the absolute evidence and proof, they'd still say no. And that's a human trait. There are people that just cannot accept certain things. You know what I mean? They can't accept that there were giants that once walked this earth, yet they have skeletons of them. So, then what? There are, people are just flat out deniers. I mean, that's the way it is. They'll deny anything. I mean, and it's in their makeup. They're just people that they're very comfortable with, what they know as the human race and the animals, and they're happy, and anything out of the norm to them is just frightening.
All right, Gail says, evidence, not anecdotal stories, but hard, verifiable evidence, or an abduction, hopefully with a personal probe to teach them some of the things they should be taking on faith. There's a lot of, I'm going to tell you right now, there is a lot of probing in this field for people love the probing. They love the probing part of this whole thing.
Okay. No, look, it's what you said. It's going to take hard evidence and proof. A story isn't going to cut it. A fleur will give some people notion that goes, okay, so there's something out there like that, and it is the right size, and it does look the same way. But the evidence has to be out there, and that's just the way it is. It's going to be a body. It's not going to be anything else. It's going to be a body. Even if you show them, even if you would show, if you had a FLIR camera set up and it witnessed, and the camera took a FLIR image on video of a craft coming down, little guys getting out, walking around, changing tires, kicking the tires, getting back in and taking off again, you'd have, out of 1,000 people, you'd have 900 people saying, that's fake.
Well, let's continue on here. as we have, let me just check here. Here's Brian. He says, proof. The ancient astronaut theory is interesting in principle, but much of the supporting evidence is completely fabricated. I believe aliens over God as to mankind's origin, but I don't deal in faith. I need proof, or it's just an interesting idea. He's right. Is that what it is?
Yeah, he's right.
But it all comes down to what I always like to say, what is proof? Because my proof is different from yours, which would be different from his.
Mm-hmm. It still comes down to the same thing. Proof and evidence. Stories ain't going to cut it. Same thing with Bigfoot. I mean, after all the thousands of photographs taken of Bigfoot, all the thousands and thousands of reports taken of Bigfoot, you would think they would find, after 50-some years, that they would find something, a body, a piece, real hair that can't be matched. But they haven't. They just haven't.
All right. Tom says, a national TV appearance, a movie deal, commercial endorsements, book tour, national news acknowledgement, State of the Union appearance, and Fox News interview. Nothing less. Nothing.
He may be right. He may be right. I mean, look, you probably do all that stuff, and you're still going to have a bunch of people sitting there going like, I don't believe it. No, this is bullshit. I ain't buying this. It's, you know.
Are people just that fickle these days?
Oh, they've been that way for years. I mean, even when something actually is actually documented or found, right, and presented, there is always one person in the crowd that says, ain't buying it. This is what they did. This is how they doctored it. This is what they did. It's fake, or it was. Look, it's just. I mean, it's an interesting question, but it still comes down to the same answer. You're going to need a body, an absolute body. I don't care what shape it's in. It can be, mangled. It can be pristine. Doesn't matter. You're going to need a body.
One of the deepest listeners we have is Andrew, and he's usually following along on Twitter. I don't see him tonight, but he's probably working and listening at the same time. He says, maybe the aliens aren't so alien after all. Perhaps we are looking at genetic cousins who have been with us, around us, for a very long time. The evidence may be within our ancient earthly texts, the great monuments of our planet, the ancient relics on our moon, Mars, especially breathtaking visual evidence continually being recorded by the Curiosity rover as it slowly meanders towards Helios Mons, or Mount Sharp in Gale Crater. Deep. Almost romantic. Almost. Now, Brent and Chris, husband and wife couple, down in Washington State, lovely people. They run the hotel that we stay at for the Four Spoon Paracon. Brent says they need to have hardcore proof, either an alien that's been studied for years already or some kind of spaceship that they see for themselves. Couldn't they find that at Area 51?
Well, Hollywood makes great spaceships. And, no, it's not gonna be something mechanical. It has to be a body. It just has to be a body. Because if you bring something mechanical like a ship of some sort or a saucer, 90% of people, oh, you built that, or who did that? Did you make that in Hollywood, or did you build that in the garage, or there'd be all kind of things going on. So, just like this thing that was put up last month, I guess it was now, with the photographs from the fighter jet of chasing the UFO, right? Well, that heads-up display is not from that type of aircraft. So that was picked up on right away. I mean, there are guys out there that actually fly or flew F-15s, F-18s. They know what the heads-up display looks like. It ain't that. That's not a heads-up display from an F-15 or an F-16 or an F-18. So that shot that right in the can. So right away, everything the guy was saying after that was just deemed to be a bunch of crap. Whether it's true or not, we don't know. But just to get a point, here was something they showed and said, this is the real deal. Here's the gun sight camera, the heads-up display. And ta-da! Guys were all over the internet with that, showing pictures of F-15, F-16, F-18 fighters, their heads-up display. It didn't look anything like that. So the guy says, I don't know what the hell that is, but it ain't F-18, ain't F-16, ain't F-15. Mm-hmm. So even when something was shown, you know, there was this crowd that just rose up and denied it and said, that's not it. It's a lie, or it's no good, it's fake.
Mm-hmm. Brent's wife, Chris, says, sometimes you just have to see it to believe it. And that's really what it comes down to for a lot of people. David follows up saying, skeptics would never believe it, even if it was in their face. Cognitive dissonance wouldn't allow it.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Right.
I mean, you can invite them for lunch. They'd still say it's not real.
Ken says here, getting probed. I was abducted at 5. It's real. It's always about the probing. Always about the probing. Everybody wants to talk probing. Don't know why.
I don't.
Not me, man.
Oh, no thanks. Ain't nobody sticking nothing to me nowhere.
Yeah, exactly. Kevin, or Kevin's beard, we never know which one is speaking because he's got one of those power beards. He says, research and the ability to think on their own. And Charles says, academically authenticated body parts or other artifacts. I don't mean to sound pessimistic, but this is to convince skeptics. I want to believe. Do skeptics, though, in your mind, and we only got about a minute left here, do a lot of these skeptical people really want to believe in your mind, Butch?
No, not at all. No, even when they've been presented with incontrovertible evidence of something, they shot it down. Instantly. There was no thought, no training, it just, they shot it apart. I mean, Kecksburg crash scene has been taken apart so many times it should be a puzzle. I mean, the skeptics went after that like one of my dachshunds would go after a hot dog. They just ate it alive, and the guy that did it. I mean, so it's that old story, you know, damned if you do and damned if you don't. So even if you're doing a good job, there's somebody who's going to say you ain't doing a good job. And if you're doing a lousy job, there's going to tell you somebody's really telling you you ain't doing a good job. But it's all in the eye of the beholder, what they're looking at, what they see, what they think. And it's going to take a body, just like Bigfoot's going to take a body, just like the bipedal canine's going to take a body. I mean, yeah, I can, if I'm lucky enough to get a FLIR image or a FLIR video of this thing, that's one thing. So that proves there's something out there. But unless I drag a body and throw it in the roof of the truck and bring it home and take it someplace and get it looked at, all I got is a really good FLIR image that proves that there's something out there. Doesn't prove what it is. It just proves that there's something out there.
Are you, Mr. Butch? We only got about 20 seconds. Let people know where they can find your research.
They can find my research on UFORCOP.com, and that would be the same under Facebook. Also under Facebook, UFO Research Center, Pennsylvania, or just my name, Butch Witkowski. And every Friday night, I can be heard on Existence of Strange Things Radio out of Radio Memphis, and that's from 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. And the last Monday of every month, right here.
Awesome, my friend. You hold on. I'm going to wrap this thing up. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Tomorrow night on the program, Geraldine Orozco is going to join us. We are going to talk consciousness, how it ties into extraterrestrial contact. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. I want to say a big thank you to everybody out in our audience listening at work, at home, in your cars, doing whatever you're doing. Everybody on Twitter at hashtag spacedoutradio, on Periscope.tv. Thank you so much for being with us. Everybody on Spreaker tonight, you were awesome. And if you're listening in on Revolution Radio or in the SOR Space Travelers Club, thank you so much for sharing this show. Thank you for being a part of it. We're going to do it all again tomorrow night, because together, my friends, we own the night. I will talk to you in 21 hours from now. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Have a good one. See you tomorrow.